all that sweet talk was in vain. It's too late to reconsider. Our love is flowing down the drain. You're free, free. Baby, any place you wanna go. Free, free, free. For that other love, you know. I have no ball or chain to hold you. You can walk right out my door.
Good morning. The City of Tampa Community Redevelopment Agency meeting is called to order. We are going to start with an invocation. Personally. Today we have Sherry Silk. She's the CEO of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. Sherry has worked in animal welfare for over 35 years. Prior to becoming the CEO of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay, she was the operations manager and cruelty investigator for the Michigan Humane Society in Detroit. In this capacity, she appeared on Animal Planet's Animal Cops for several years. She has also worked for the National ASPCA as an outreach manager. She is past president and served on the board of the Florida Association of Animal Welfare Organizations. She has 2 adult children and shares her home with 2 terrier mixes and 2 cats. Thank you so much for being here.
Please stand for the invocation.
Good morning. Let us pray. We give thanks for the creatures who live alongside us as companions and friends, for their unconditional love and trust, which enrich our lives and give us such joy and happiness. May we all learn the value of kindness, the power of mercy, the strength of gentleness, and a new spirit of humility during these very difficult times. As we go forward today, may our gratitude unite us in the desire of using all that we have been given to help those less fortunate than ourselves. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Maniscalco?
Roll call.
Oh, okay, then roll call.
Miranda.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Vieira. Carlson.
Here.
Cedro.
Here.
And Hurtak.
Here.
We have fiscal quorum.
Excellent.
I just, take a point of personal privilege to offer my condolences to the family of DeJuan Washington. Some of you may have known him. Young man, he passed away, I believe, Tuesday after being in the hospital for well over a year. Passed away, I don't know, 33 years old, I think, very, very young. But he was always very politically involved down in East Tampa. And I just want to give my condolences to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Massey, if you could please review the rules pertaining to public comment and participation in the CRA meeting.
Be glad to. This is the July 21st, 2022 meeting of the City of Tampa Community Development Agency, or the CRA, being held in the City Council chambers on the 3rd floor of Old City Hall, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard here in Tampa, Florida. The public is able to attend this meeting in person or view it via cable television or on Spectrum Channel 640 or Frontier Channel 15, or by the internet via www.tampa.gov/livestream. The public is also able to participate in this meeting during public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, either here in person in City Council chambers or virtually by way of Communications Media Technology, or CMT. However, the use of CMT does require pre-registration with the City Clerk's office. Directions for pre-registration are included in the notice of the meeting and on the agenda. Could I please have a motion waiving the CRA standard rules or procedures to allow public comment participation by CMT?
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before we go any further, I also do want to recognize that we have two members of royalty in our presence today. So I would like to introduce Zoe Grace and Jade Gordon. They are Miss Juneteenth and Little Miss Juneteenth. If you want to stand up and just say hello. Congratulations, ladies. Zoe is 10 years old, and she is she's a student at Riverview Academy of Math and Science. She is Little Miss Juneteenth, and Jade Gordon is 14 years old and in the 9th grade at Tampa Bay Tech, and she is our Miss Juneteenth. So congratulations to both of you. Thank you for joining us.
If I may, Madam Chair, this Miss Juneteenth pageant was spectacular at Middleton this year. I was there, and all the contestants were lovely young ladies, but congratulations to these two winners. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming today. And now I want to know, Mr. Ali Strumgo is here to let us know if there are any changes to our agenda today.
Good morning, Ms. Chair. There are no changes to the agenda this morning.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. The motion made by Councilman Maniscalco and seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The public is now welcome to comment on any item for up to 3 minutes. If you would like to comment, if you'd please stand up to your right, my left. Just make a nice little line, and you are more than welcome to come on up. Yeah, go right ahead.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to give honor to the Most High and to all of you in your respective places. I'm Pastor Tucker Johnson. I am the president of the Tampa Bay Juneteenth Coalition. I had the opportunity to tune in to the City Council meeting on July 14, 2022, which prompted me to be here this morning. Last week during your council meeting, the question was asked why the city does not want to adopt Juneteenth as a holiday for the city employees. The response to that question is that they would prefer to have a floating holiday. This would mean that everybody would get an opportunity to have a day to take off and celebrate however they wish, which we do anyway. Part of the narrative that is often told about Juneteenth is that slaves were still enslaved 2 years after the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation, starring General Gordon Granger as the lead character, who arrived in Texas to ensure the freedom of the slaves. The lesser-known element of that narrative would include the presence of several Union regiments of the United States colored troops. A people who lived the history of why the Emancipation Proclamation was needed in the first place cannot continue to place someone else in charge of their narrative. It's that lesser-known element, along with the other hidden and or buried elements of Black history, that leads me to ask myself, when do I tell my own story and rewrite my own narrative to uncover these hidden elements that need to be addressed properly for the sake of liberty and justice for all? And to add insult to injury, Mayor Castor's Chief of Staff, John Bennett, cited the major cost to shut down the city for a holiday as one of the reasons for the opposition. How dare anyone to put the cost of shutting down the city for the celebration of freedom for an oppressed people in the same sentence referring to Juneteenth? Lest we forget that once the slaves were freed, they received no reparations or salutes, but their masters, the oppressors, were compensated. The word floating literally means a drifting away from the original position. I would like to conclude by addressing Chairman Joe Citro. Sir, in all due respect, I want to first thank you for always supporting us, coming out to support our Miss Juneteenth pageants for the last couple of years. You said to me to tell you if we needed anything and to let you know. I noticed when Councilman Goulds asked each council member their stance on Juneteenth as a city holiday last week, you were the only member who did not respond. Well, I'm letting you know today to please stand on the side of truth, because the truth brings justice and liberty for all, and And truth is, Juneteenth is representative of a celebration of making a wrong a right with no interference or distraction. And when you stand on the side of truth, only the truth can set you free. And to all of the rest of you on this council, I just want to thank you for your openly standing up for the truth. And thank you for your time. And thank you for saying yes. That's it.
Thank you.
Good morning to the City Council. My name is Alfred T. Piles. I am a senior citizen at the age of 68 years young. I am also a veteran. My grandparents, Alfred and Ollie Piles, purchased the property at 1509 East Fifth Avenue in September of 1943. September of 2022 will be 79 years that the Piles family has resided in Ybor City and has paid taxes on said property. Possibly, I am representative of being the senior residential family in this area. I am requesting by unofficially speaking on behalf of the residents residing on Fifth Avenue, primarily between 15th and 16th Streets, and inclusive of those living to 21st Street, that the City Council implement a residential-only parking ordinance. Yes, Fifth Avenue is a city street, and if there's any street that is deserving of being a residential-only parking street, it is Fifth Avenue. Why? Because of this continual obsession by the numerous ongoing visitors, travelers, and tourists that frequent Ybor City. The law states since public roadways are just that public, no one has the right to reserve spaces in front of his or her house. However, while it is not illegal to park in front of someone else's house, it is certainly inconsiderate. So, the fact of this matter is that we as residents are always suffering from continual inconsiderate beings that choose to park in front of our homes rather than using the parking garages that were designed and built for the public. It is, in my opinion, you, the City Council, can make an exception to the rule, the law. In our case, I and others cannot leave our homes at whatever time of day or night and return to find a parking spot in proximity of our residence. Due to this fact, imagine yourselves daily placing your trash containers in a parking spot to preserve a parking spot, just to find once you've returned, some visitor, traveler, tourist has moved your trash container to park their vehicle, which is inconsiderate. Can you members of this City Council imagine yourselves now, due to all parking spots being taken, being relegated to looking for a parking spot a block away or on a street behind where you live? In my case, that being 4th Avenue. During my youth, we never had parking problems on our street, 5th Avenue, not until the city allowed the creation of turning Ybor City into an entertainment district, which brings volumes of people in Ybor to partake in various activities. The ironic thing about this is that the city has built several parking garages to service the numerous travelers, visitors, and tourists. And one of the garages sits directly in front of my home on the north side of 5th Avenue. People choose to be inconsiderate and forego the parking garages for whatever reason and prefer to park in front of our homes. I implore you, the City Council, to make us whole in incorporating this simple request. Make 5th Avenue residential only parking from 15th Street to 21st Street. And if you find this request to be unreasonable and even unlawful, I just wanted you to clean the alleyways up so we can possibly use our backyards for parking. Because we need it paved, we need it cleaned.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Mentesnot. It's good to see the leadership of our African women. In African culture, our women are called bees and hoes and the N-words and tricks and twerkers and everything else. But this young lady right here just laid it out so eloquently. It's amazing. And so it's good to see, I'm inspired by the fact that we have that up-and-coming leadership inside our community and inside our race. But the fact of the matter is, some of this stuff, you can't make this stuff up. It would be rare and unusual that I'm on the side of the police. but a police officer was just terminated, fired, lost his job, lost his way of livelihood in this city of Tampa for solicitation of a prostitute or having sexual relations with a prostitute. I don't know the details. It's not even important because I should be here talking about reparations, capitalism, imperialism, socialism, and that the fact of the matter that we're 26% of this population and have never, the city just celebrated 100 and some years the other day, and we have never seen any justice in this city. But the mayor and the chief of police took the time to fire someone for having some kind of communication with a prostitute. Now, is that an insult to prostitutes? Or is it an insult to employment? Or an insult to the black community, to the African community that have had their family members murdered, beaten, bicycle laws, kicked out of our homes, code violations, and nobody ever got fired for that. It's called insensitivity in the worst way. The city is trying to micromanage ignorance. The city is trying to micromanage ignorance, and they're doing it off the backs and the insults of African people. It's insensitivity in the worst way. What about the lady downstairs a few weeks ago that said, is Tony Daniel out on the sidewalk? Do you need security to escort? Hey, that's violence profiling. It's worse than racial profiling. It's violence profiling. Is she gonna get fired? Is she gonna get terminated? What about all these cops what about Jonas Joseph family? Are those officers gonna get fired? And the fact of the matter is, I don't like to personalize anything, but what about the 4 officers that pulled a gun on a 12-year-old and put her in handcuffs inside of my home at 2204 East Ida Street? I don't like to personalize anything because I'll never come down here for myself. I always come down trying to represent African people. This city needs to stand up and do the right thing.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Eddie Adams Jr. And I'm here to re-inform you of what Juneteenth actually means specifically here in Tampa. I was chairman of the Sheriff Black Advisory Council at one time. And at that time, the sheriff was David G. And we, for 30 years, had an awards banquet for the sheriff's employees, bail bondsmen, officers, staff, all those good folks. And we would recognize the black ones because that was one of the things that we had been doing for a number of years. The sheriff created Hispanic Advisory Council and the Indian Advisory Council. And everybody had award banquets because they was kind of doing what we were doing. We was the first to do it. And so the sheriff said he didn't want to do 3 awards banquet. This is something you may not be aware of. So we had ours the 4th week in October every year. And we had been doing that for 30 years. And he said to us, to me, came to one of our meetings and said he preferred that we do one banquet, and we do that banquet in October, the week we usually do ours. So pretty much he came in and said, you know, y'all served me, we're gonna do one banquet and we're gonna do it your weekend. We're gonna do it your week. And we didn't have any choice in the matter. So I say, let's find a day, a week, a time to have an annual banquet to celebrate us being able to award and recognize the black members of the sheriff's staff. And so I looked down the calendar and I saw June the 19th as a national holiday that some folks had already been celebrating in Texas, almost 100 years. And I said, why don't we take Juneteenth? That was 15 years ago. And we did a breakfast for a couple of years. Then we started doing a Juneteenth luncheon. So at that point in time, Juneteenth came to Tampa, and I said, I hope one day we make it such that all 30 days of June, Black folks are doing something to acknowledge our freedom. And that's something they can't take away from us. So that's how we got here, and it's a seed, and it's growing. Next year, we'll have twice as many events as we had this year.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Council Chair, Council. I'm Allison Hewitt. I'm standing before today as the chairman of the Economic Development Subcommittee of the East Tampa CRA. You have two items on your agenda under staff reports I'd like to make comment about. One is item 4, and that is the pre-development program. That program was proposed for consideration to staff about a year ago. The purpose of the pre-development is there are property owners who are being inundated to be able to purchase their property. They would like to keep their property and redevelop it to make it a more profitable for the community, beneficial for the community. Unfortunately, there are significant soft costs required to get that property financed. And so the pre-development would be able to have the soft costs, the architecture, the engineering, looking at it, and part of it is having a developer consultant to be able to stand with them through this process to be able to create a pro forma that is financeable, for them to be able to take a product to the bank to be able to become financing. A lot of these property owners, because of the housing prices, are also looking to change the current or have an addition to the current use to add housing to be able to be beneficial to the community. Most of these projects that have come to us in the East Tampa CRA, 50 years, 30 years, and at one point they've owned it for over 60 years in that family, passed down for generations. However, they need some help. And so that is the impetus to mitigate gentrification, to put together a pre-development plan that helps them be able to finance their projects, to create business space, to create incubator space, and to create housing. So we have a workshop with the staff. I'd like to thank very much Mr. Drumgo. He has brought some significant ideas to be able to strengthen that program, and we look forward to a very energetic workshop with the community on July 26th. The second item would be item 5 about the feasibility. Thank you, Councilman Vieira, for bringing that to our attention. I'd like to just say that the staff is working very diligently to create an application process. The East Tampa CRA has more money in this budget than it's ever had, but that means we need to be more responsible on how we implement those funds. So the staff is working on an application to be able to implement those funds in a very thoughtful and very productive way. A concern with this is if you do this before the application and we fund a private-owned land, then that means any other private owner would say, I'd like $100,000 to, answer slum and blight and paint my building or redo my my pavement and things like that. So I just want to say thank you to the staff for working on a process to be able to move those type of requests forward.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Keela McCaskill, and I came today. Normally I'm down here telling you the challenges that we have in East Tampa, but I believe in fairness, so I came today to tell you about something good about it. I was probably pretty harsh to Nicole Travis because I was desperate for some type of a solution, and I just felt that she would be overwhelmed trying to deal with East Tampa and the role that she was initially hired for. So I want to publicly apologize for doubting her abilities. Not only did she come and change that, she added in addition to the leadership, she brought in Mr. Elise Drumgo. So I want to thank her for bringing him, because now I have a restored faith in the staff that represents East Tampa. I don't believe he's been here 30 days and already He's met countless numbers of people in the community, and they feel confident in that leadership. I don't know if it's just never been there before, because it predates me. I mean, I've probably been involved for maybe 3-4 years, and most of the owners and the individuals in the community that he's met has been super excited about the addition. So thank you, sir. And somebody share with Nicole Travis, my apologies. I'm here today to talk about pre-development. The Economic Development Committee just alluded to it. But in that, I will also want to share that the program will be very instrumental in eliminating blight. It'll increase the tax incremental finances, and most importantly, it will keep some of these businesses that's been in existence since like 1975 is one. They've been serving the community with no assistance from the city of Tampa. Now, I don't know what our outreach has been previously to the businesses, but there's there's hundreds of businesses within East Tampa, and some of them have been here over 30 years. They never even knew that the city could assist them with sustaining their businesses. They may not have the necessary finances to do all of it. They can't restore it on their own. They've been operating in the day-to-day of the business. We have an opportunity, as she mentioned, East Tampa has more money than they ever have, and I believe it's because we hadn't been servicing the community as we should. But this is an excellent opportunity for us to get involved. You transform a community that's been blighted and looking empty and destitute for a long time. This is an opportunity to give a wow. We've often heard Councilman Gould says that in East Tampa, we need a wow factor. Helping these owners that own key properties in East Tampa, from Nebraska to 22nd to 29th to 34th to 40th Street. That's all within the 7.5 square miles of East Tampa. Saying yes to the pre-development programs gives us an opportunity to have a wow in East Tampa. And I think each one of you would want to support something like that. And even if you don't, I'm asking you to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Robin Lockett with Florida Rising. First, I want to echo what Ms. McCaskill just stated in regards to Nicole Travis. Love her to life. You know, just present, willing to help, willing to create. And, you know, in this state and in this time and age, we need some type of innovation and creativity. So I appreciate her a lot, and I look forward to working with you. Number two, Dr. Tucker Johnson. Great example of, you have to be mindful of what you do up here if it doesn't reflect the same thing in the community. Because a lot of times the electives come in the community and they say one thing, but when they get up on the diocese, they say something else. And I just really, really tell the community, watch both actions, because they can be friendly in the community, but when it comes up here, they're not voting on anything that protects you. That's what leads me into what I'm about to say. You know, I think about city council, well, the meetings a lot when I'm home, right? Like I don't have a life. But this is so important to me, this housing situation. A lot of money is going into all the programs. We can appreciate that. But the rent is still going up. And when the money is gone, the rent is still going to be up. So that's why it's even that much more important for us to put some type of halt to it, put some type of stop to it, because the rent is going to go up. That person that, you know, and I talk to people every day around housing. They're glad that they're able to get the assistance. It's flowing. I mean, it is just flowing. No complaints. When a news reporter calls me and asks me, hey, do you have somebody, blah, blah, blah? I say, yeah, but their rent is paid because the county and the city is paying it. You know, but what happens with that person that can't afford that high rent once all the money that the city and the establishment is putting in is gone? Evictions, because they can't afford it. So I love the progressiveness of the board, but we have to look forward also. How do we continue to protect the tenants in this situation, knowing that they cannot afford that rent? Orlando right now, and they did not have a 18-month study, Mr. Attorney. Orlando right now is in the process of creating the wording. Didn't take them 18 months to complete a study. So like I said at the last meeting, walking and chewing bubble gum at the same time. While y'all are doing the study, put it on the ballot and let the people vote on it to say whether they want rent stabilization or not. And it's not a decrease, it's 5% cap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Lockett, thank you for that. You know, I'm already looking at that and made some phone calls with some friends of mine and some councilwomen that I know up there in reference to what they're doing. I can't do anything today, but hopefully when I get the rest of the information, I'll be able to do something next week at a regular city council meeting. Mr. Drumgo and Mr. Burton, you stand. Mr. Drumgo, come to the podium. Let me thank you both for the fast responsive to the St. Peter Claver Church. We went there trying to give information, but you know, once we got into it, they were specific about what they wanted. They wanted the meat, and you were able to come back and give them that meat. I had several phone calls after the meeting on Sunday. I'm glad that you were able to assist me and go out there and be able to give answers. We didn't have all the answers, but we were able to get back with them in due time to get them what they needed, and they're very appreciative of that. I'm appreciative that you brought that knowledge to the table at the time. People really appreciate your professionalism, and Ms. Drumgo, they really see your leadership. What I want to say publicly is that people always say that we're angry, black people are angry. Well, we're angry because we don't get our just due at times, and rightfully so. Like angry black man, black woman, just that we don't get, and it makes us angry. We're passionate about it, but how do we get that frustration out? And I want to say that with you and Ms. Travis have come in, you know, sometimes you have to live it to understand it. You have to live it to understand it. And when I see people call me and say, they love Cedric. Cedric's been around, but Cedric was an aide. He did other issues, but it's like now Cedric has a boss now. Before he had a boss, but he was kind of limited, or that person didn't understand the need to move things. Not disrespecting anybody, but now that you've come here and we were all doubtful of Ms. Travis. I was never doubtful. I knew what she had done, but for her to bring you in as the deputy to oversee the CRAs, especially concentrate on East Tampa and make it move. And people are calling me saying, that guy is doing things. He can make decisions on the spot. And that's what people have wanted. Somebody who can make a decision, not have to be going way back here, but can say, that can happen. Or I can understand what you're saying, what you're talking about. I live it, I understand it. Versus somebody who don't really know, trying to figure it out. Well, I don't know that can happen. We're going to talk about it, we're going to legal. But somebody who's done it, other places say, that could happen. Or I can craft it to where we can make it happen. So I want to compliment you and Nicole for bringing you here and making you a part of that East Tampa focus. And people are really talking and saying, because again, they're always feeling, people don't tell us the truth. They always put us to the side. But I want to say that they're starting to trust again, and they're trusting you that you're going to do the right thing. And with the Penny Saver, you guys came in and was able to come up with a strategy to make that strategy work, to move that project and get it done. People are excited. He's telling me that's going to get done. You know, I heard they had the meeting yesterday. I'm hoping it doesn't take a year to do a community engagement. I don't think it needs to be a year. We already know what we want over there. It should take a year to do an engagement project to say, okay, here it is. We've already told you what we want. You need to find somebody who can build a darn thing and give us a good price to do it. So I'm hoping that you work on that to get that done, because I don't think it needs to take that long for a community engagement project. I mean, we don't look at going in a phase here, then we stop a project here. It needs to be, okay, who can do the project now? Who can complete the project now? Not just we're going to do one building now and then we'll go back. No. How long will it take you to complete the whole project and get it done so the community can say, we got it, we got the wow, and not be putting it off? So that's just about a challenge I'm going to bring to you, to bring back to whatever RFP you're putting out there, how that's going to go. Who can get it done now? Who can do the whole project? I don't care about shutting the park down. I mean, it ain't, the kids aren't really there now, right now, anyway, because people don't like what's going on there. The numbers are very low. So my challenge to you, but again, I want to say thank you for the work that you are doing. You're working with Cedric over there, he's working hard over there. So I'm just saying, I think things are starting to kind of go to uptick because, like you said, we need to spend the money. I've always said we got to spend the money. So I just want to say thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe we have a couple of folks online that?
Yes, we
would
have two
like
registered speakers.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. We have Mr. Michael Randolph on the line. Mr. Randolph, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. So my name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. Just want to give a couple updates. On July the 31st at 7 p.m., the CDC will be hosting what's known as Reducing the Violence, a national approach to ending street violence. Some of the highlights is going to be Baltimore, New York, Tampa, and Chicago, and Philly as to what are they doing in those cities. The other thing that's coming up in West Tampa, for those that want to start their own business, on August the 2nd, it's a business development class. It's going to last about 6 to 8 weeks for those that want to start a business. Part of that is for those that want to be a grant writer. We'll be teaching them how to write a grant as a way to bring in income, as well as how to put together a professional business plan as a way to create money in their community. We also are doing a home-based / e-commerce program in which we'll be offering both micro loans and small grants to businesses that want to start a micro businesses. If you're a developer in West Tampa and you need the skill set to do housing in West Tampa, we're working with you to build you up to capacity. The other thing I want to mention is that we're also working in the background with developers to do affordable housing in West Tampa. So West Tampa is really moving forward. I want to give a shout out to East Tampa. We're talking with the CDC of Tampa to do a combination of the two CDCs, West Tampa CDC and the CDC of Tampa, to do a joint project in order to increase the quality of life. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to make this presentation, and do have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Chair, the other registered speaker is not logged on at this time. Therefore, that will conclude the public comment.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Drumgo, it's time to shine. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman. Elise Drumgo, Deputy Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. The Administrator Travis, she sends her regards. She can't be with us today. Up first on staff reports, item number 1 is the Central Park Community Advisory Committee Chair, who will be providing a report. Thomas Murphy, if you would.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think you guys have awesome copies of this as well. So have a little update on Central Park and the ongoings that we've had in the past few months. Central Park CAC continues to discuss adding sustainable improvements to the preservation of the 2 Johnson homes on Scott Street, the 2 last remaining scrub homes that are there. The addition would be realized through the Tampa Housing Authority partnership. We'd actually be using those homes as residential owner-occupant homes as well, and hoping to maybe set a path for future homes to be built as well.
Wait just a second.
That's okay.
Please
Okay.
silence your phones, thank you.
And hope to build future homes similar to what they've done in Ybor City with a lot of their community center and whatnot. The homes would also provide a historic mode for more single-family homes in the area, and the CAC has requested funds in the new budget for this partnership with the Tampa Housing Authority. Are you all familiar with those 2 homes? Everyone's good? Everybody's okay, cool. Excellent. Also, the Soul Walk is something that we've been discussing a lot in our meetings. Central Park CAC held discussions with the City Arts and Culturals Department regarding the Soul Walk, different stops that would be involved in that, how Central Park would be part of that Soul Walk. The CRA redevelopment study strongly identifies with Tampa Central Avenue Historic Preservation. We've also requested funds in the new budget for this partnership as well. Here's the big mama. All right, Paradise Baptist Church. So this is one we've been working on for a while. Central Park CRA, we visited with the Paradise Baptist Church on Scott Street, if everyone's familiar with that as well. Councilman Goods was there with us. It's an experience It's pretty cool. We're very privileged to have actually been able to go down there and see a lot of the artifacts, a lot of the things that Pastor Frank has held on to. He held that open for a long time, I believe in the 90s and early 2000s as a museum, and stopped when people started stealing from him. So he was no longer doing that. So we were pretty privileged to get down there and get to check that out. The current church and building and its parsonage were built in 1904. I think there might be a little discrepancy on that too, just based off of some communication that I've had. So maybe the building could potentially be even older than that. The basement, so Florida basement, if that's not something. The basement is adorned with Central Avenue and scrub history. So it's a lot of artifacts that Pastor has brought from Africa, things that are pertain to old photos of the city of Tampa, things that he's had from there. He has shackles that were actually slave shackles that he's held on to for all these years and whatnot. The owner expressed interest in selling the site as a historic and cultural center, so that's what we're kind of working on right now. The CAC recommends borrowing funds against the CRA's increment revenue in the new budget to purchase and secure the building for historic preservation and community use. So we're kind of the low man on the totem pole with CRAs in our budget and whatnot, but we have a lot of great ideas, and this is one of the last buildings that's still in Central Park, Central Avenue, that's still standing, that wasn't demolished. So it's really, really important that we preserve this and don't let it get to a too blighted state. Finishing up, St. Peter Claver, the Central Park CRA, I believe Councilman Goods went as well down here to St. Peter Claver Catholic Parish. A discussion was held regarding the redevelopment of the area and the school that are down there. The parish requested and received a copy of the recent city rezoning actions and a CRA plan analysis, and they also expressed interest in the proposed Bright Line rail. So any questions from anyone? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad I, for the second time going down there, but actually getting the opportunity to go inside there.
Yeah.
Folks, I'm just gonna tell you, that's a treat. You really need to see, if you get a chance to go in and see, and it gives you chills when you see, well, especially me, when I see some of my history. When I see some of my history, and I took photos and put on Facebook, but I'm glad that we're looking to do something with that. We just can't lose that stuff. That stuff is so valuable in there. It's just like a gold mine, and I'm glad that we're looking to try to do something. I'm very supportive of that, because I tell you, it was a treat to go in there. Treat.
Absolutely, it's really, really cool. It's just a shame because a lot of the stained glass windows are being broken out of it. Yeah. Rats have infested it. You know, it's not completely falling apart. It's not as bad as Jackson House is right now, but I mean, it's well on its way if we don't take care of it now. So awesome. Hey, thanks y'all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Central Park. Mr. Drung, I did read the memo you sent me in reference to Central Park. There are 2 open spots, but there's nobody from the church on the board. Is that correct?
So I do believe there is a person from the church on the board. Mr. Burton shared the name of that person when we were in the meeting.
Okay, all right. Want to make sure they got somebody, since they're all want to be involved now, make sure you have somebody on the board.
Sure. All right. Well, item number 2 on the agenda is a staff report from Major Eric DeFelice of TPD. He'll be updating on crime activity and collaboration in East Tampa and Ybor.
Good morning, Council. Eric DeFelice, Major of District 3. So today, I want to present the report on what we're doing in East Tampa and Ybor. First and foremost, violent crime is our #1 concern. So to kick off the summer, we initiated a warrant roundup where over 75 members that had warrants in the community were rounded up with an emphasis on East Tampa, focusing on that area. We also instituted a gun buyback program where over 1,000 guns were bought, and we actually ran out of funds within 4 hours, so that was a huge success. We have instituted more frequent patrols in our hotspot areas in East Tampa, trying to focus on those areas where the community has expressed interest in having us there to quell the violence. And so far to date, we have removed 342 guns in just Sector E alone, which is a huge amount, staggering, and we are still providing resources to try and increase that number and remove not only those guns, but also remove more guns than we did last year. So our second point that we would like to focus on is the youth. So engaging with the youth in the community is hugely important. So we have partnered with Parks and Rec to assist with the stay and play programs. So our officers have been assigned to go out there to the different areas and engage with the youth. So they have been required to let us know their hours. They have been playing basketball, kickball, engaging in programs with the youth and being there, mentoring, talking to, and just generally being available for the youth in our stay and play programs. The feedback that we have received from that is great, and we are looking to continue that program next year and expand upon it. We also have Safe and Sound. So with the Safe and Sound programming, they do and help sponsor programming at the Rich House. They also sponsor the reporting center for the juveniles after they are taken into custody. There's a 21-day program when they get out, and they try to mentor the youth to try to make sure that they don't reoffend. And they also participate heavily in community events to address gun violence and public safety, which is huge. They also have instituted a program for mentoring, trying to make sure that we reach the youth that not only have been in trouble, but prevent those from getting in trouble in the future. So the key partnerships with our local entities, our BHU, our Behavioral Health Unit, we're making progress with that. So that is, I'm sure you're all well aware of that, how we have a clinician right along with a Tampa police officer trying to reduce the rate of recidivism for those that are suffering from mental illness and in crisis. We have seen good results with that, making sure that we don't have to go back out when dealing with those types of calls and reduce the numbers calls for service. We also have made some great progress with our federal partners. We had a meeting to address not only the prevention of the state attorney's office, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, et cetera. We have meeting with them to figure out what can we do to prevent some of the crime, what can we do to target the crime, and then once we have identified those defenders, how can we move forward with making sure that their penalties match their crimes and that they are being held responsible for their actions. The city in general has taken a holistic approach to dealing with violent crime and issues and complaints that we've received. We have made an emphasis on focusing on all of the city entities coming together, not just from the police side of things, because many times law enforcement intervention is not the answer. So we partner with Parks and Rec, parking, code enforcement, et cetera, when we're looking at a problem to try to address it in that holistic approach. For Ybor, one of the biggest things we did is started regular meetings with the stakeholders, not only the business owners, but the property owners, YCDC, and the residents, to try to have more frequent meetings to figure out, where we're at, what can we do to improve upon what we have already, and kind of give ourselves metrics. How are we going to measure the success that we have received in that area? That has been a huge success because it allows all the people involved to come together in one room and discuss, how we're going to move forward. We have recently instituted our Ybor liaison position, which we think will be huge for Ybor. So an officer, a specific one, will be coming. Actually, I think his first day will be Monday. Will be coming back and will be going down and addressing Ybor concerns Monday through Friday. What we feel that will do is give the business owners, the managers of the said properties, a person that will be there and not be pulled to other assignments, because that's one of the struggles that we do have. So we're hoping with that position, getting there and being there on a full-time Monday through Friday basis, that many of the concerns that we are seeing and addressing down in Ybor will be able to be handled at the officer level, and it just will improve efficiency all the way around. Our homeless liaisons, we struggle with the homeless issue, not only in Ybor, but downtown and in the city as well. So we have removed them. They were centralized down in 411, our headquarters building. And what we did is we brought them back to District 3, where we're experiencing a greater number of homeless issues. That will give us being able to see them and be able to direct them a little bit better to some of the issues that we're facing. That's the approach that we have taken. Some of the initiatives that we have, by all means, there are many more that we're doing. I saw a couple hands raised.
Yes, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, thank you for what you all are doing. In And obviously, we need to address this. The violent crime rate, as presented by the police chief, has gone up every year for the last 3 years. So we have to try to address that. I think that's the citywide statistic. But in Ybor, almost every Monday, I get personal complaints from people who felt threatened over the weekend, with either shots being fired in the air or shots being fired one person or another nearby, people being chased down the street with their lives threatened. And it seems like most of it, you all be in a better position to review it, but it seems like most of it is happening between like 3 and 4 a.m. So the bars let out. This is as I'm told. I don't hang out that late anymore. But as the bars let out, sometimes people get in a fight in the bar, and then they go out to the parking lots, and they sit in the parking lots with music and everything, and then whatever fight happened inside the bar carries out to the parking lot, or new fights start, and then there's violence. So I know you all are trying to address the issues, but as we're looking at Monday through Friday, let's please make sure that somebody or more than one person is there late at night. One other story I've heard is that the police, even though we might have a dedicated police officer, they're at one end of Ybor and something's happening on the other end. But my question to you more is, what do you think we could do to try to help address this? One solution has been proposed by the groups you've met with are lighting, especially around the parking lots. I think when Dick Greco was mayor, they put up a bunch of really bright lights in Ybor, especially after 3 o'clock in the morning to try to get people to move on. Another might be some kind of time limit that people can't congregate in parking lots past 3:30 or something like that. But if there are tools that we can give you to try to help you to move this on, we don't want it to go from a parking lot in Ybor to go to some other part of the city. But if you all think that we can do some things here from a policy point of view to try to fix the problem, please let us know.
So we have to address those concerns. Ybor evolves, so we definitely want to make sure that we have 7th Avenue covered with the influx of people. So we always have officers there. So we recently, in the past, this is week 5 of a 6-week initiative to address those late night concerns. So we have an operation that's in place where we have anywhere from 35 to 45 officers there on the weekends addressing those concerns. And what we have found is, just like you said, that we were experiencing concerns. We want to make sure that nothing happens on 7th Avenue. We have a very sophisticated way to clear people out, and we clear them out, and we were flushing a very large amount of people into the parking areas to make sure that they did go home. But that was pushing those people and concentrating them in those parking lots. So our plan, our comprehensive plan, involves security on 7th Avenue. It also has enforcement groups, north and south of 7th Avenue, addressing concerns all night long. And then it focuses those officers in the parking lot areas, specifically on 5th and 15th. So anywhere from 5th and 8th, there's a parking all through there. So as the crowds move to the parking areas, the officers are there, their lights are on, and they are flooding those areas, trying to make sure that nothing happens in those areas. So what we're looking to reduce are, any violent crime, the loud music, etc. Lights is a debatable topic, and as we move forward in these stakeholder meetings, we are identifying what we think we need that is going to be amicable to all involved. Some people like the lights, some people don't like the lights, and we just need to find that balance. Cameras is an issue that came up, and we are adding and should be adding more cameras to that areas to help. And I think that as we move forward, we go in phases. We see what our crime initiative has done, how that has affected the crime. Are we displacing it? Because we fully expect that as we move the crime and we flood the area with resources, that crime will be displaced further out. So we anticipate that and we alter our plan as such. So as we move on in phases, we see what's going to benefit us. Lighting can or may be the answer, and it may help. It might be, a temporary fix where we put it up until we get a handle on the parking lots, and then just continuity with everything. If we have that consistency, that consistent enforcement, then we hope to see some of those problems dissipate.
What about something like I mentioned the curfew, whatever we would call it, like 3:30 or 4 in the morning, something like that, to say, okay, now it's time to clear?
What we're finding is At 3 o'clock, we institute our shutdown program. We take 2 big horses, two SUVs, and about 10 officers in a line, and we flush everybody out. By 3:30, for the most part, it is clear and down there. So the process that we have right now really does clear it out. I've been down there till 4 in the morning at work, and I've seen it myself. By 3:30, there are nothing but stragglers left, and we really are able to shut it down. So our process for clearing it out is good. It is that, I'd say, 2:30 to 3:30 mark when people start flushing out, about 2:30 getting ready to go home. That's when everything amps up, and that's when we have the officers in those areas prepared for that.
Thank you all for being on time. One last thing, Madam Chair. Mr. Goods, I think, made the motion to do this. I would let him make the motion, but I suggest that we bring this back in 2 months, just so we can track it or have an update like this every couple months. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Goods.
Since Ybor was last, I'll start with it. I am in Ybor every weekend. You know, people call me all the time, so I go down there. I know all the officers down there. I don't know about a total of 35 on Ybor, but I know that we have officers down there. You know, old strategies do work. Now, the major is right. They've instituted to where they're blocking it off, which is good. No traffic is going through there, so that blocks off the boom boom guys, and everybody continues travel. So that is good. I noticed that behind 7th and Grove, you now put a camera behind it, the big, what appears to be the camera behind 7th and Grove. I think that is good because a lot of times parking lot issues are an issue, and sometimes we blame the club sometimes, but actually, you know, people, you know, they get drunk, get into a spat, they go behind the buildings, and you have sometimes these shooting things that occur. So I'm glad that I did see that. We talked about those cameras. I think putting some of those behind those businesses behind that would kind of help the police and target some of the people. But I believe that clearing the parking lot out do work. Most of the bars, I know Gas Bars shuts down, which is one of the goodest bars. They shut down about 1:45. They don't shut down at 2:30 because most of your bars shut down about 2:30, 2:40 and rush everybody out. And I think, you know, that's a good concept they have instituted. Again, Mr. Carlos, when you're talking about what the mayor's saying, a lot of times it's the before the after, because when they start to come out, that's when it all breaks loose. So I think in the old days, you know, when we had security at the bars, when I used to work them, you know, those guys start dealing with that particular traffic of those people, making sure you prevent those type of things from happening. So, but a lot of times, a lot of officers, you can't get to work the bars now, and that's the issue. You know how we're going to resolve that. But I know there is a ordinance to have officers at those nightclubs. A lot of times you can't get officers, and they go without. So I know it needs to be looked at. They need to get some security or other people there, or other agencies that could work it. That might can help us as well. But it's a try, because a lot of times a lot of jobs go unfilled, and when you don't have officers at nightclubs, you know, things go awry real quickly. So maybe the mayors can look at maybe seeing if other agencies can work some of our clubs with a mutual aid agreement. I know the sheriff office, their policy is they don't work nightclubs. I don't know if that's still in effect, but the sheriff doesn't allow them to work nightclubs. Major, while you're here, the gentleman is still here, so I want to address his concern about the parking, and Mr. Drumgo and Ms. Orr in reference to the Fifth Avenue situation. If we can look into that, I don't know what we can do, but if we can do something or get with Vic to see how we can help them out back there. I understand his complaint. You know, sometimes people are parking, they can't get out, garbage cans. You know, I talked about alleyways. That's what West Tampa has. Maybe we can look at cleaning up some of those alleyways so that people, for that, I would say that the southern portion that you could drive through the alleyways and they can get to their homes. So maybe it's something we can do to alleviate some of the issues that they're having down towards Fifth Avenue, where there are homes that are down there. So we can look into that. Let's go to East Tampa. I had some friends that come into town last week, and Councilwoman from Orlando, a few others, and went to see Tampa. So we're driving, and I've said it time and time again that between 22nd Street and 26th Street, I don't understand why we have folks that have tables set up on both sides of the road or on Tampa housing that has taken over Belmont Heights Estates, that they're gambling and congregating on the right of way or right on the property. I don't know if we've engaged with with TSJ or not, but there needs to be some type of some kind of negotiation going on to stop that. It looks real bad when you got all that happening on Lake Avenue, less than 500 feet away from the police department. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and I'm hoping Mr. Drongo, his group, look at securing some of those properties, especially that liquor store, that we can clear some of that out, which I know that's a problem because the liquor store is there. And that King's building that's right across from it's a problem. We don't want to force people out, but we got to make some changes, and hopefully East Tampa has money. We need to look at trying to acquire some of this stuff or working with those people to make them better. But Major, I'm just serious, between 22nd Street, 26, there are a lot of people. I don't have all the answers, but sometimes old strategies do work, but I'm just saying, less than 500 people in the police department, and we got that multitude of people that are on the right-of-way with picnic tables out there. I mean, you see they're gambling, or those folks that are residents in Tampa housing on Belmont Estates, then maybe they need to tell those people, if they're their friends or whatever, you know, you need to make sure you control your people. It's very bad. Chelsea, again, I know, you know, I know we have a shortage of officers, but again, I'm glad you said about the hot spot areas, especially Chelsea, the Blue Star. I don't know if you've driven by lately, but when you go by Chelsea and 40th Street at the other Blue Star, the Dollar, I mean, it's tons of multiple people. Sometimes I go in there they know who I am. I go up there just to buy breakfast sometimes, or dinners, lunch. I mean, it's a multitude of people up there, and I know I had asked for some cameras. CRA has money. I know there's certain stipulations when you're talking about cameras and viewing people, but I think just to see what the area is happening and doing and identify some of these people of some bad activity, a different strategy. But I'm getting calls from those folks on Chelsea, the residents now. They're just tired of everything that's going on. So I love the police, but I think we gotta amp up a little bit more. We have money to help the police, I believe, in our CRA, and CRA money can be used for public safety. So I think that's a conversation, Mr. Drago, with the police department. What else do they need as resources to help them? We have money. We have to utilize that, and people are asking, what are we doing? And I'm responsible for that. And again, I know we have money. Let's see how we can help them. But again, some of those hot pocket areas, I'm glad you're saying you're beefing it up, but whatever monies we can have to help with public safety, let's ask them if you need, ask them to get it for you. And I'm sure this board would approve it because the calls I'm getting, I'm sure they're getting too, because you know, I get it. I go out to the scenes. I don't just, as a councilman, sit back. I actually go out there when there's a shooting, stabbing, or whatever. I go there. I don't just sit around. I go there. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
First, I want to thank you for all your efforts in combating the gun violence. You had mentioned 342 guns taken off the street with the buyback that was so successful that you ran out of money, which is good.
No.
And that's
1,000 guns with the buyback, 342 just taken off with police activity.
So even more so. So think about that. If each gun, and we can't assume that each gun would be involved in a violent crime, but that's a lot of people that won't be killed. You know, there won't be that opportunity that whatever happens, we don't know. But, you know, I appreciate everything that you mentioned, you know, in detail of what TPD is doing. You mentioned stay and play. You mentioned, you know, mentoring the youth. You mentioned so many things that are important. You're using the tools that are out there. But, you know, as Councilman Goods mentioned, you know, if we can help you as a CRA and as a council, I'm sure we most certainly would, because I myself personally have never understood the gun violence. I mean, in this country, it's out of control. School shootings, that's one thing. Mass shootings, that's one thing. But this is, you know, in the communities, people fighting, and they resort to a gun. They resort to murder or attempted murder, and you lose a life and you destroy a life because somebody ends up in prison for a long time, if not the rest of their life. And I just don't understand why society has become like this. It's like we've gone back to the Wild West. You know, the club goes out, you know, the club closes, people go out into the streets, there's a fight, an altercation in the parking lot, and they resort to gun violence. It could be gang violence, it could be whatever it is, but at least, you know, as you've explained, we're taking steps that I think are very necessary and productive and effective in helping to reduce that. I don't know what else we can do further, but I will say, as Councilman Goode said, that, you know, if we can help more, you know, from a CRA or a city council perspective, I certainly would be supportive of that. And I thank you for your efforts and your team and TPD and what you've all done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I yield to the, city council attorney.
I just wanted to briefly state, CRA dollars can be used for community policing innovations. That's what the statute provides. We also have used CRA funds for certain enhancements or certain equipment that go beyond what the city would typically provide. We cannot supplant or use CRA funds to basically provide basic police service. So that has to come out of the city budget. So I just want to make sure the CRA is aware of that.
Okay. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman Hurtak. I appreciate very much. Thank you very much, Major. You certainly have risen my hopes for success because the way you answered the questions and the way you spoke, you didn't read a speech. You spoke from the heart and from what information you have gathered through your years of service as an officer. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
I've heard different things. What is an entertainment district? It depends who you ask. And is money going to solve the problem? No, I don't think money will solve the problem. I think the problem is much deeper than just throwing money at somebody to solve it for that instant at that time. But that habit that we created through the environment that's there will continue with or without money in it. You have to, the culture, and you alluded to it earlier when you talked about the young kids. The only way that you can solve, in my opinion anyway, these kind of things is through a long, many years of habit of what you see and what you hear when you're growing up. Even though when you don't know how to speak and you see things and you hear things, that culture starts to cultivate, no matter where you're at in the city. No matter what race you are, no matter what color you are, it starts when you're a young kid, when you're a young girl, a young boy, that you see things that stick in your subconscious mind that later on in life you want to experience, I guess. But it's very difficult to be in your position because the habit starts at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And why does it start? Where do they come from? And where are they going? And who are those that appear there? There's a lot of questions that you have to answer without knowing who they are. So I would assume that starting off, where do they come from? They don't come from a church. They don't come from a family gathering. Let's take that out. They come from where? A bar. What are they high on? We don't know. They could be high on themselves. They could be high on feeling good. They could be high on drugs. They could be high on many things, on alcohol, whatever. But the question that you have is a different one because it changes as you go on. After they leave, where are they going? Are they going to create another problem somewhere else? It doesn't take more than one person to create a problem. So if you have 50 or 60 or 100 or 300, you got a lot of problems that could expand to somewhere else. And that's not only is it bad for there, it's bad for the city image, it's bad wherever they're going. Because at that mindset, at that instant when they're doing these things, you and I can't solve it. It takes a lot more help than just saying we're going to solve it. You're not going to solve alcoholism unless you go to AAA and work on it with those individuals. You're not going to have drug use unless you know who they are and what they're doing to help them. So these things are much more deeply rooted than our conversation today. And I really believe that you have to start somewhere, and you're starting in the right area by putting more individual bodies so they can see that we mean business. And we're not trying to get rough with anyone. Certainly, I heard about gun violence, but then the question becomes, out of the 1,000 guns, how many did you buy that were not operable? I don't know. It could be one, it could be 900 of them. So the gun back is great. It makes focus on the public to understand what's going on in the community, and the 300 plus that you guys, officer men and women, picked up on your own, that's 1/3 of the gun violence that you picked up in the buyback. And I guarantee you the ones that you picked up were much more operable than the ones you bought. That's just my opinion. So I see these things and I wonder, what is the problem? And the problem is not tomorrow and not today, but it started years back. That thing exacerbated by things you see on TV, things you see in movies. Violence that you see. When I was a kid, cowboys shot each other, but then the next movie is the same two cowboys. And they never died. And now what you see in life, the movies that do a lot of revenue, what are they about? They're not about Mary Poppins, I'll tell you that. So what's happening in society is all you see is violence when you're a kid. What are you going to think will be a doctor? No, you're going to be a violent person, possibly. And these are the things that you, as a major in the police department, are settled with. That's a very difficult question to answer. And it's even harder to implement and succeed in. But from what I see, you have started the process of solving some of the problems. Are we going to solve them all? I doubt it. But there's a start, and putting people in jail is one thing, but is somebody going to replace them at that seat doing the same thing? Because we haven't talked to those kids when they're 6, 7, 5 years old. And I know you guys are doing that, all of you, men and women of the police department. The communities are getting involved, the recreation centers getting involved, and all that will solve some of the problem long-term, years from now. And I appreciate it very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me my 5 minutes. Thank you very much for what you're doing, officer. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman.
I'll yield.
Okay.
I'll yield.
Let me thank the major for the quick response on the officers in reference to the 7 possible overdoses last at Jackson's store. I mean, the quick response to the officers to get to those folks. We had 7 people. There was a gentleman, I guess, put out what I call bad batch of drugs in the community. I know up in the Panhandle, 6 did die in the Panhandle recently, but a bad batch of drugs was put out there. People were unconscious, and the folks of District 3 responded very quickly with our fire rescue department. Maybe give them Narcan, get them back to breathing, and so forth and so on. So I want to commend you, your folks, for getting a fast response, because that could have been a really bad for some families and others that day. So thank you again. Let the officers know that we appreciate that.
Okay, Councilman Citro.
Thank you very much, Chairman Hurtak. I will be brief. This is probably one of the biggest problems that the Tampa Police Department faces. There was a location east of 22nd, back when I was with YCDC, Ybor City CRA, that would have pop-up parties. And you get 100 people on this, here's where we're meeting. And you'd have, within a matter of 25 minutes, 150 people parking in that location. Now, I don't want to put any business out of business. That's not what I want to do. I love driving up and down 7th Avenue on Friday and Saturday night at 12 o'clock. I love to people watch. But there is a lot of establishments that before you enter those establishments, you have to be patted down. Ybor City is turning into a neighborhood again. I don't know how many neighborhoods in the city of Tampa would want an establishment in their neighborhood where you had to be patted down, search for weapons before you can enter. I think that City of Tampa, City Council, needs to take a long, hard look at who we're giving alcohol sales to. Again, see, Ybor City is turning into a neighborhood again. And this, someone from another part of the Sound sees somebody they don't like, where are they at? Let's go down there and beat them up. So I thank you for the great job you're doing. But there are certain things that we need to start looking at. We as a city, we as City Council, we as Ybor City, we as a neighborhood, we as a community. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, I appreciate how you're working with the community and answering what the community is saying they want. So I appreciate this update, and thank you so much for really focusing on or using what the community is telling you they want and need to develop solutions. So I truly do appreciate that. Thank you so much for this update.
Madam Chair, Mr. Carlson wanted to bring that back in 2 months. Was it 2 months update on that, sir?
I'll leave that up to you. Don't you think we should get an update?
Yeah, we get an update. 2-month update. You wanna take a
Not to
motion
make
right
you
now?
do more work, but
Okay.
just so we can,
See how the strategies work.
if everything you're putting in place is successful, then we'll celebrate in 2 months. How about that?
Motion made by
Would that be for September 8th?
That'll be fine.
Okay. So, motion made by Councilman Goods and seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Item number 3 on the agenda is the CRA staff reports. Before we jump into staff reports, I'd like to share, if I could get the overhead, please. Just want to share that the CRA director position is officially advertised as of July 18th. And so what I have for you, just a list of our steps here. There we go. Of how we expect that recruitment process to go. If anyone is watching, the position is posted on tampa.gov/careers. And then that person, anyone interested could go to view the job openings. It is listed as an unclassified position. And then it is the Community Redevelopment Agency Director. That position will be open for recruitment for the next 4 to 6 weeks, or until we get enough qualified applicants to interview. We'll be looking at initial interviews, and then we'll whittle down that list to 3 to 4 candidates who will require to attend a meet and greet forum. And that forum will consist of you as the board, CAC members, and also the CRA staff. And I understand that Administrator Travis's time as interim will expire at the end of the fiscal year, and so our goal is to have someone in place October 1st to take over the new position. So I just wanted to share that update with you all before staff reports.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for doing that, moving forward with it. Second, isn't there anybody else from Lakeland we can steal?
Unfortunately, we are all here. We are all here.
Councilman Citro.
Councilman Carlson, the mayor of Lakeland has threatened me, the next Florida League of Cities, not to take any more people from Lakeland.
So up first, staff reports will be Jeff Burton for the Urban Core CRA.
We'll start anyway. We'll start with the downtown.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. There we go. Downtown CRA, we voted to negotiate with Kittleson to move forward the CRA plan rewrite. We are also discussing the improvements of city downtown designated A streets. This comes out of the city's code itself, very descriptive. I was really excited to see that. A review of the Florida Main Street program. Main Street program is a national program that just about every state in the union has a state version of. They designate an area. I will tell you this, that the Main Street program in Florida, there were, when we looked at this a couple of years ago, 53 main streets in the state, and 79% of them were in CRAs. So there is this relationship between the main streets and the CRAs. Main streets market, they hold events, they added maintenance to the main streets. The main street does not just have to be a street, it can be an area around a street, it could even be a river walk. But what it does is it emphasizes what can happen with and especially with the businesses in the area. So we're going to be looking at that. Also, we've been talking promotional discussions we've held with Straz and Tico Historic Streetcar. You know, every time one of the CRAs offers to put money out as a partnership, we need to make sure that we are being represented in everything that they use to promote what they're doing. So had a really great meeting with Tico, or with the streetcar. They were very friendly and very willing to help us to advertise the fact that the Tampa CRA is a partner of theirs and is providing for the service and the free rides. So you'll be seeing that. That'll probably be the first thing you see that says anything about the CRA. Again, Straz and everybody else were asking them nicely to include us in all of their promotions. Channel District, we're discussing parks and recreation proposals for enhanced maintenance of the public realm. That is actually, the maintenance part is actually a partnership with the city's Parks and Recreation Department. Had a really great meeting with them. We're meeting again next week to talk about enhanced maintenance of the public realm, above and beyond what the city currently does. And then also, as far as the park, the open spaces and the green spaces, at this time in this economy, it's very hard to acquire more green spaces, as we have learned, especially in Channel and downtown. So what we're doing is we're making an effort to, as the CRA plan that's coming online says, open spaces, and that would be to use our existing land to increase the square footage of open spaces, and also do a couple more very important services in the community that we just haven't seen before, especially with dogs. So that will be coming forward, and we had a really good meeting with the CAC at the last meeting there. On all of the CRA, on the urban CRAs, we are contracting with USF, School of Geosciences, to do an update or a review of the legal descriptions for all the CRAs, just to verify the maps, and especially when the new plans come online, just to, not adding or subtracting anything, but just verification. And we're working with contract services on that right now. That will begin to be done by hopefully October. And we're also working with School of Geosciences on doing a public realm inventory in Channel, and if it goes well, then we'll move that to the downtown. The reason we do that is to identify all of the improvements in the public realm areas. That will become important in the downtown as we move forward with the A streets, because there is some financing out there, very good financing, that will pay to replace any of the assets that we currently have with new assets, and we're talking 20 years, 0% money. So we're looking, but we have to account for all of those assets. So having graduate students out geocoding all the locations, and we are looking also to get with the University of Tampa. I don't have the contacts that I have with USF, but we need to make sure that we're using all of the schools that we're allowed to use legally, both hardscape and naturalscape. So Central, you've heard the discussion about St. Peter Claver, about the Paradise Baptist, the visit. That will be coming forward. It's in the budget, and that's something that we need to move forward on. To give you an idea of the timeline we're looking at, the CRA itself does not have the increment revenue just to pay cash at this time, but increment revenue can be bonded and it can be used for loans. The first phase of the gas works will be in Central Park, but we don't foresee any additional increment revenue coming from that work until at least 2025. But it is coming. So we've had discussions with them. We've talked about the increment and done projections on that. Tampa Heights Riverfront, we continue to work with Robin in Central City Arts and Culture and Melissa on public art for the Palm Avenue Roundabout. We had a meeting 2 nights ago, and we're looking forward to begin working with them on that specifically. And also, starting in October, plans for a crosswalk from the Stetson University Law School parking lot over to the Waterworks Park, just because there are people that are going across that street, and that street has that curve on it, and we want to make sure that it's not only safe, but we would provide an enhanced crossing, and we would be working with mobility on that. So trying our best to work with the other city departments to get projects done that are in the CRA plans and update the CRA plans at the same time. We are looking to update Central Park next year. And then we have Tampa Heights Riverfront the year after that, because they are each over 7 years old, and that's usually where we want to update the plans and keep them fresh. So that's something we just need to continue to work on. But that's the urban CRAs. If you have any questions, thank you for having me here this morning. Yes, sir.
Councilman Good.
Give me just a small update on that Kid Mason. How we coming along with that?
Kid Mason, as was reported by city staff and the architect, they had over 70 items that they had to work with development services on. They had addressed those. I think as of this week, we were informed that they're down to just about 40 items that they're still working with development services on. The permits will not be issued until all of those items have been reviewed and checked off. So it is moving forward, but they are still working through development services.
Just give me a brief update next month when you come, Mr. Burton, just how we move along with that process. It's been a long time coming with that, and it's just dragging, just dragging.
I can tell you this, that, I mean, you have a vote today on Union Station. We met 2 days ago on Massey Park, and that's moving forward. There was a lighting issue, and we said, no, we'll worry about that in a project that's coming up before you in a year or so, and let's move forward and get it permitted and get it moving. Kid Mason, we are doing our best to get it through the appropriate city services, and believe me, I've worked in development services. You have to meet with the building code, life safety code. You have to meet those requirements, and they're working through them as fast as possible. So.
I believe the building is so old, and you're talking about upgrading that building. I mean, I think that's some of the challenges. I believe that's some of the challenges, and I just, we should have just went on here and just, I don't know if that was land earmarked as a historical or not, but I thought we should just from the get-go just tore it down. But I was told it's better to try to rehab it. But if we're having this much challenges, we may need to rethink that, because it's a lot of challenges. So if you, Mr. Drum, can look into that, see how we can get that moving, because
yes, sir.
that needs to move, man. People are waiting on that, and it's just taking too long.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Carlson.
Any update on the Jackson House?
On the Jackson House? Yes, sir. We met with, just so you know, not in this upcoming budget, we actually moved money forward to assist with that if it ever moves forward. And we all know what the issue is. It's the need for land around the building in order to do the work. We met with the attorney that was talking with the partnership that owns the actual building. And they are still negotiating with the property owners that own the property around the building itself. So it is moving forward.
Does everybody here know the issue? Just maybe for the public, if you're allowed to, maybe Morris will shut you down, but could you in 30 seconds tell us what the issue is?
So the property that the building sits on, it's basically on a zero lot line. The building is on the property line, or right next to it. And in order to upgrade the building, in order to bring it back, you need space around the building in which to work. When the structure of the building was improved a few years ago, when they actually went in and improved the actual structure, the property owners gave them permission to use, for a period of time, that property. In order to fix the building, we need to use at least 15 feet on either side in order to do that work. The property owners own all the property around it, and they're negotiating with them to try and find a way to gain that property temporarily or long-term.
Are you allowed to say what they want in exchange?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're still in negotiations, and the negotiations are being handled through the Jackson House folks primarily. That we are trying to assist to the extent we can. So.
Yeah, just that council may be asked to do something related to the land around it, and hopefully this will be worked out in advance. The second thing I want to say is that you all know Judy Lisi is retiring at the Straz Center in a month or so. There's a new person coming aboard that sounds fantastic. this CRA saved the redevelopment of the Straz Center. It was going to be abandoned at least for a few years. And they were in the middle of COVID. They were losing money because they were shut down. And we all stepped up to invest in them. It's a city-owned property. We put in 25%. They're going to put at least 75% more. So that's at least 75 million more they're going to put in from the private sector. And it's going to open it up to the public, provide lots of free events, lots of training, lots of things. And we know that the arts are a magnet for redevelopment. You can see everything that's happening around there. They're getting squeezed out. But at some point, as either Judy's stepping down or the new people are coming in or they break ground or something like that, I think that the whole CRA board should be there because, privately they've all thanked us and, thanks to everybody for supporting that. I think it's a really important investment for our community. That center, because of the way the building was built under, I think, the Martinez administration, and then the way it's been run by Judy Lisi and her team, it's one of the best respected venues in the country, and they even invest in Broadway theaters so they can bring the best shows here. And so we want to make sure we continue to develop that because it's an important piece of Tampa's development for the future. Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
And real quick in response to that, Councilman Carlson, I'm now on the Straz board, and they've acknowledged publicly the CRA. Anytime I'm there, they're always thinking CRA and the city and the city and this. I mean, over and over and over, from Judy Lisi's lips to other people. So the acknowledgement is there, and you said it. The commitment made by us for that center, which is nationally recognized, is significant. And not to repeat what you said, but they're very grateful. At least from what I've heard many times.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I want to just echo what Councilman Carlson just said. He mentioned Governor Martinez when he was mayor. It took guts to do what he did. How many people do you know that was voted down by the citizens said we're going to build it anyway? And he had the courage, the foresight to do something, and that's where we're at today.
Were you on the board then?
I'm not that old. But what I'm saying, sir, is that I was in the board later on in life, but not during that time. But you got to give credit where credit is due. It's very hard, very difficult for an elected official to make a decision at the time that he did it. Now it's to say, oh, anybody can do it. But at the time that he did it with courage and understanding of what had to be done to bring something back. And what he brought back was the redevelopment of the whole city. And I'm not saying that's the only reason, but if you go back in history and study what was there when they came in and what happened afterwards, you can understand by just the numbers what it did to have encouragement to stay up and afloat, and what things happened and how things, would the Riverwalk be there today? We don't know. There's so many things that when you do things here that you vote on that may be casual, and some that are not casual, that happen for the future, not only of this city, of any city. I just want to thank Governor Martinez and then Mayor Martinez for having the courage to do that.
I want to say thank you for the update on the Jackson House, and I wouldn't be opposed to if someone wanted to make a motion for a monthly update on that till we get it resolved.
I'll make a motion.
Because that to me just seems like it's something that we all need to keep front and center. Honestly, if this board met every week, I would like a weekly update, but we'll take what we can get.
I move that we get an update on Jackson House at each CRA meeting.
For the August 18th?
I'm sorry?
For the August 18th?
Every month until it is resolved.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
And again, just the Jackson House is owned by a private entity, and so there is a limit to what we are going to be able to update you all. I just want to, it may be, there's nothing new to report. So.
And that is fine. I just think it would be really nice to keep it in our consciousness.
If I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to know what property, if any property, is owned by the city in close proximity to the Jackson House. And the reason for that is when you deal in a business dealing, you want to make sure you have a plan B just in case plan A doesn't work. And I don't know if the properties at the Union Station can be used for some assembly of whatever.
We can provide you an update. I can tell you that the only property that's under any city control that is in close proximity or adjacent to the Jackson House, there is a alley that is in the rear of the Jackson House that is a publicly dedicated alley that I believe there was a vacating petition at one point in time that was abandoned, but that's the one area that we do have some jurisdiction over that's near.
Well, thank you, we already picked up some land, see that?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilman Carlson and a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Up next is Jesus Nino, West Tampa, and Drew Park CRAs.
Good morning, Jesus Nino, West Tampa and Drew Park, Urban Development Manager. We're all pretty excited that we finally closed on the Redner property located at 2101 West Main Street. Now I just have to go out there and get the grass cut every week, but that's okay, we're excited. We're about to initiate the process to designate the property a brownfield site. It's a very simple process as far as the designation. It's just done through resolution, public hearings that come before the city council. After that, we're going to go ahead and enter into a brownfield sites rehabilitation agreement that gets recorded with EPA and runs with the land and goes before city council as well. Once we're done with that, then we'll go after voluntary tax cleanup credits. That'll be sold in the open market. Basically, we're going to remove 2 feet of soil from the entire property, including all the concrete you see there in the pictures, then replace it, then work with the community, Parks and Rec, to redevelop this as a focal point of Main Street and open space for the community. The Brownfields program is very valuable economic development tool that should be looked at for other CRAs, in my opinion. There's a lot you can do with it. Next, we have the new full-time clean team. We actually received bids back, so I'm going to meet out there on site in the area with some of the companies that are kind of going after this clean team designation for us, and hopefully we have them in place pretty soon. The new days of cleanup will be Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so they'll be responding to whatever litter or anything they see out there needs to be cleaned up. They'll clean it up. If they see any kind of suspicious activities, they'll report it to the proper individuals in the city. I think that is it for West Tampa. We have a lot of projects out there, but I'm keeping it very brief. So this is what I have.
Councilman Citro has a question.
Jesus, thank you very much for all the work you've been doing in West Tampa, and you're getting a lot of kudos from that from the citizens of West Tampa. The park that was formerly owned by Mr. Redner, which we're doing brownfield on, business owners have been asking that part off to the west that people were normally parking their cars there. Is that going to be part of the park, or is that still going to be part of a parking area?
That's private property owned by
That is
Mr.
private
Marvin
property.
Knight.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Goods.
And we talked to Mr. Knight, maybe a facade or something in that area, because I was just with Ms. Sanchez the other day, driving through the alleys, of course. Great time with her. Maybe a conversation with Mr. Knight in reference to that, because it looks pretty bad.
Oh, many times, and I'll continue to approach him, and maybe I'll have lunch with him and we'll talk.
All right, thank you.
Make sure he pays.
Any other questions?
I think we're ready to move on.
For Drew Park, we're pretty excited that we're about to initiate the public listening process for 2 new parks in Drew Park. Actually, one's already existing, but to upgrade it to make it more active, that's Tampa Bay Boulevard Linear Park. Then also we have the new neighborhood park. So we have a public meeting scheduled for August the 17th at 5:30, Hillsborough Community College, to go ahead and meet with the community to discuss their ideas on the neighborhood parks. We also have a survey that's up, so we hope that all of you take that survey. It's at www.tampa.gov/CRAS/Drew-Park. So hopefully you guys in the community take that survey. Then we have a second public hearing also scheduled, or not public hearing, public meeting on August the 30th at Polk Community College as well, just to follow up with the community and just move this project forward so we can have good parks out there. Any questions on this slide? Okay. One of the other projects we have is that we have secured Una Johnson Landscape Architectures LLC. It's a multidisciplinary landscape architecture firm that's going to go out there and audit Lois and Grady, kind of give us an update what the condition of the plants, landscaping, safety features, whatever has and hasn't worked in the past whenever we did the streetscape improvements. So once we're done with them, we'll go after to go ahead and improve it with improvements that they recommend. That also includes the roundabout that's right there on Tampa Bay Boulevard. So we're hoping that roundabout will also be a focal point when you're entering into Drew Park. I think that concludes my presentation. Yes. Questions? No. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Good morning, Courtney Orr, Ybor City Development Manager. The review committee for the Ambassadors and Clean Team have made a decision and provided a letter of recommendation to the contractor that we'd like to award that contract to. So purchasing posted a letter of intent last Friday. It expires on tomorrow, actually, this Friday. And then at that point, if there are no objections to the recommendation, then we will be moving that contract to be awarded to the city council meeting on in August, sometime in August. We're August 25th, I believe. And then a much needed Ybor improvement is a thorough directional and street name sign assessment. So we have drafted a scope of service for that, and it was released on July 1st. We'll be opening those bids next week. So hopefully we'll be able to get someone on board very soon to improve those signs that you can't read, the street name signs especially. They're way overdue to be replaced. And then it was a compliment, just something I wanted to share, that lower right-hand side picture. It was a compliment that the municipal team, certain municipal staff from Austin, Texas, including police officers, reached out to the city of Tampa and CRA, Ybor CRA staff to put together a quick team to meet with them. They came on site into Ybor because they wanted to glean some information from us on how we run events very well and our public safety initiatives with TPD. So that was a good meeting. And then we are working on improving the deliveries, the improper parking of delivery trucks on 7th Avenue. That's been an issue for a while on 7th and 8th Avenue. It causes a lot of backup in traffic, people unable to navigate 7th Avenue. So TPD and parking are issuing citations to make sure that those delivery trucks no longer are improperly parking on 7th and using the north and south streets to do their deliveries. So that seems to be working effectively. And then the annual special events co-sponsorship grant cycle is open. We usually have about 15 special event grants that we award annually, and that deadline for that application process is coming up on August the 1st. And then not listed here, speaking of events, I just wanted to mention that the Tie the Knot event, which is a wedding event, which features 6 Ybor historic clubs that are set up exactly like you're attending a wedding. So the caterer's there, the DJ's there, the place is decorated like you're actually going to a wedding, so that potential upcoming brides can pick some of those contractors that are there in one of those 6 wedding venues. And that is this Sunday. It is a ticketed event, so if you plan to go, and there's a trolley that takes you, navigates you to all 6 of the historic clubs. And that concludes my report.
Okay,
any questions?
Councilman Citro.
Ms. Orr, thank you very much. Since paid parking has gone in, have the business owners been happy with that? And has the, as I remember, the $50,000 a year that the Ybor City CRA had to pay into cleanup and maintenance of the parking garages, has that been returned or stopped?
Stopped.
Okay.
We're not, when this March 14th, when the paid parking went into place, at that point, we were no longer transferring funding to them of that $50,000. So that's been able to be reallocated.
Okay, have you heard any reaction from the business owners about the paid parking?
We've taken in a lot of reaction, and so thankfully, Fed Revolt, the city parking manager, has had open ears. He's attended 2, 3, 4 meetings and has been taking in information from residents and businesses, just on maybe some tweaks that were just unknown issues that happened after the program rolled out. But you know, he's been great. He has open ears, and he's looking at the suggestions and recommendations from the business owners and the residents.
So far what I have heard is about 50-50, and yes, the parking spaces are not being used all day for parking, and that more and more people are able to park in front of the establishments to go in and spend their money.
Yes, and there are stats. So he has a way to, tonight actually at our meeting for transportation, we're providing stats on what that looks like, how many people are parking in the district. So, so far, so good. I mean, but there are some tweaks, and so we're working through those.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I've gotten an earful, a lot of feedback too. It's probably 60-40, 60 against. My other office is in Ybor, and I spend most of my time there during the day when I'm not here. And I think it's a huge improvement that people are not just parking all day. It was difficult for any of the businesses to have people come in for a short time. And I can talk to parking people outside of the meeting if they're not watching now. But a couple little suggestions that I would make. Number one, the parking rate is really high. Like someone said to me yesterday, I'm paying twice as much here as I'm paying in downtown St. Pete. And so I think it's a good idea to charge because it gets us to turn over the parking spaces. But I have a space at the Noriega garage, and sometimes I try to shorten my walk and I'll pay. And it is expensive. And the second part of that is that I wish there was a 15 or 30-minute alternative. I think the minimum is an hour. If there is 30-minute, then I missed it. But it would be great if people could pay less, meaning like take a shorter period of time and pay less for a shorter period of time. Because some people come in and they want to buy something quick and get out. They want to go in and get a cup of coffee for 30 minutes and get out. It would be just something to look at to try to not hurt the business. We don't want to hurt the businesses there. The idea was to help them by providing more turnover, but we don't want to scare people away by making them think they have to pay $5 for parking to go get a cup of coffee for $3 or whatever it is. Thank you.
And we did shift over already the Uber, Lyft, rideshare parking signs. So those spots that were dedicated to the rideshare parking have already been converted to 15-minute parking. So a little bit quicker, you know, if someone wants to pop in and like you're mentioning, those have already been converted.
If everyone's done, I will echo the parking. I actually did have a meeting with Fed, and I'm still not clear on, there are 3 parking areas that the city owns that you're allowed to park for free for 2 hours, and it is still a complication. I literally have to have people follow me to those pay stations to teach them how to do it. I couldn't even get my husband to agree with me on how it all worked until I showed him. So it would really be handy if I mean, to maybe for the CRA to consider or even if parking is going to do it, just a bit more of a advertising, telling people how and when they can park for free in Ybor. It just seems like it's such a great thing, especially for lunch, people who just want to pop in and out, and just, as Councilman Carlson was saying, just for something faster, but then, you know, not having to actually go to the pay station instead of using your phone, which everyone's used to park mobile on their phone, is a little tricky. So.
Yeah, and Fed will be at our meeting tonight, so I'll be able to talk with him again.
Great. I think that's one of those issues that I think if the residents are more clear on where they can park for free or cheaper, I think that would be wonderful. It's, you know, a lot of visitors who come to our city expect to pay for parking, so while we do want to support them, it's really a lot of the residents who are used to just being able to park for free, that it's nice to, it'd be nice if we could explain that to them a little bit clearer.
Yeah, I agree. I think the education component, we can definitely improve that.
Absolutely. Councilman Goods.
Good you brought that up. A lot of times, the machines don't work. You can't put any money in the machines. Everybody don't have credit cards, you know? A lot of people don't have credit cards, but they need to park. I remember one time I left my car, but I had cash. I had to get a ticket, but I was about to park, I had to pay it. And again, you talk about educating the people, the first 2 hours are free. Well, if you don't go to the machine and put your thing in there, you get a ticket.
Yep. Right.
I don't understand that logic. If it's free, it's free, but I don't understand the point of that.
Yeah, it activates the session, so that way if you do go over the 2 hours, you have a form of payment that it can start charging to. So you just need to activate a session so that it has a credit card to charge to right after the 2 hours is up.
I don't know how old those machines are, but I'm just saying, a lot of young kids, people are going, they don't have cards. Cash is still around, so I just throwing it out there.
But that is actually not how it works. You punch your number in, and then and you choose the number of hours you want. So if it's 1 or 2, it says okay, and then it figures out your total, and then it spits you out a ticket for 0. So
you
it
don't
does
have
not
to enter a credit
nope,
card?
you have to.
Okay,
you do
that's
not
how
have to
I
enter a
was
card. So that's
Yeah, for that,
yeah. So again, it is a more incredibly complicated system than it needs to be, and so just anything that allows the citizens, especially for people who just want to spend time in Ybor and are used to not paying. I mean, we do have those 3 lots. I think that everyone should know about.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear for me and the public, the free parking is only in those garages, right? For 2 hours, not.
The surface lots, the lots 3, 5, and 6
But-
surface lots.
So the example I was giving earlier is if I park with one of the meters next to me, I've never seen 2 hours for free on that, right? You pay for that. And that's what I was talking about is, sometimes people are running late and they don't have, even though it's 2 or 3 blocks away, they don't have time, and they park, and then it's like minimum of $4 or $5, and you go in to buy a $3 coffee, and it seems like it's a lot of money for a short period of time.
Yes, I agree. There's some kinks to work out, and even with the market, Saturday market, the vendors we're trying to work through that as well. They were so used to pulling up, unloading, or the customers could pop in and pop out, so that's another avenue we need to go down and investigate how we can improve that situation as well.
Yes, Councilman.
Just one more question. A member of the public mentioned resident parking on 5th. I don't know what parts of Ybor have resident parking or not. I know in Hyde Park it's controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. Do you know what
Yeah, that
parts?
should have residential parking. It's at 6 o'clock and after. So I believe that Fifth Avenue portion, Mr. Powell was referencing as residential parking after 6 o'clock.
Okay, we can take that up apart.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I gave Mr. Drumgo, Mr. Powell's information, phone number, so he can record to address that with Vic.
That's right, Councilman, and I've already exchanged messages with Administrator Nguyen, and she and I are going to get together with Courtney, get a little bit more history on that, and we'll address it.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Cedric McCray, East Tampa CRA Manager. How's everybody doing this morning?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, first up, our subcommittees and CAC continue to meet. Our last meeting was on July 12th on that evening, and several topics of discussion. We have had Rob Rosner come into one of our subcommittees to discuss the community benefits agreement prior to a community meeting they had last month. Summer youth employment is going well. We have a capstone event that is scheduled to take place on June 28th, and I believe a couple of the council members, I'm sorry, not July 28th, I believe a couple of the council members attended, or CRA board members attended last summer, and they're looking to do something similar to that. And we also have a service component. We've partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and they're going to be doing a project in the Highland Pines area on July 26th. As we get more information, I will gladly make sure that that's pushed out to you all for your knowledge and edification. Also want to mention that we had a mentors meet and greet for the East Tampa Leadership and Entrepreneurship Academy. That was something that ball was kind of rolling sometime last year prior to my arrival, and finally getting it going. Had about 15 to 16 folks to show up. Some folks that couldn't attend stated they were still very interested in serving as mentors, and the consultant that we hired will be having correspondence with them as well. And that event took place on June 30th, and I want to say thank you to Councilman Goods for attending that event. Get to the next slide. Okay. As you know, our CAC budget was approved on June 2nd by our CAC and the East Tampa Partnership. We are looking to kind of land the plane as it relates to the strategic action plan, possibly with a strategic, not a strategic, but a special call meeting, and we'll have a date very soon to solidify that. As it relates to tree trimming, I know that last month there was questions, and folks want to be updated on that. It says 50 on the report, but for the month of June, we've had 60 applications that have gone out as it relates to trees that were in the hopper and have gone out to the vendors for service. Our owner-occupied rehabilitation grant kickoff was held yesterday on July 20th, and looking forward to those committee members having an opportunity to review the application that was submitted, and we'll have a corresponding date sometime early August when everyone's schedules are and they're available to meet, review, and then comment and decide whether or not we will be moving forward with the applicant that supplied all the information necessary. I also would like to highlight that we issued our first Tenant Ready grant, and it was a business owner on 40th Street that met all those qualifications, and that business will be starting to do work here very soon if they haven't started already. But we approved that on July 1st of this month. So that was one thing that I would like to highlight. And last but not least, and I'm going to slide this on to Elmo, and it was mentioned by Councilman Goods a little earlier on the Elmo, as it relates to the penny saver. I don't know if you all ever see it. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So did share this information last Tuesday with the members of our CAC and the community members that were assembled to applause and a lot of celebration as it relates to the closing of the penny saver and the acquisition by the city. So thank you for your support in that, and looking forward to moving that ball forward as it relates to the demolition. The fencing has already been put up, and looking forward to getting it done for East Tampa and the city at large.
I want to give you a round of applause. Probably not as large as the one that East Tampa gave you, but we are really thrilled about that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your support and the members of the administration that have participated in bringing that to a close.
Okay. Councilman Goods?
I know we've got to deal with tearing it down. How soon will you believe? Is that the end of the month? We're talking about next month before we get that demo?
Nope, I believe it's going to be within the month.
We're moving very quickly. I know that the administration is moving, trying to get that demolished as quickly as possible.
All right, let us know about that, like when that's done. I think that'd be good for.
Yes, when we did the walkthrough last Tuesday, the gentleman from the demolition company was on site, and they're going to move as quickly as possible to move forward with demolition.
What business is that on 40th Street with the new tenant move in?
That was, let me make sure I get the name right. It was Total Image Beauty Salon.
That Mona?
4713 North 40th Street.
Hey, all right.
Yes,
Stop
sir.
by there and see her then. Okay, great. Next one I have, the RFP. How fast, once we do this review, that we can get the ball rolling so we can start getting some rooftops, getting some things moving?
So we met yesterday for the kickoff with the representative, Ms. Gibbons Peoples, with purchasing, And we're looking at some dates. There were some members of the committee that weren't able to be there. As soon as she receives confirmation on when we can, they will receive the information to review and then score, and then we'll reconvene, and then those discussions, and there will be, they'll calculate the votes and totals for the, after the scoring to see if they're going to move forward with the one. There were 2 applications that were submitted. One of them was incomplete, so now we're just moving forward with the one applicant.
I want to make sure I got it right. I know we have the owner-occupied rehab, but I think we're talking about a separate roof.
Yes, that is on the agenda today for you all to discuss.
I want to make, because I know it's 2 different ones. I want to make sure I got the right ones, because I know it's raining and people are calling about roofs. So, I was at a meeting tonight, so it's on the agenda today. So how fast will we be able to move on that one, Mr.
Well, we won't be going through the same process with the owner-occupied rehab. That will be handled in-house and between myself and the staff.
Criteria not too strict that people can be able to afford to get it?
We will be talking about that in just a few minutes.
All right, okay, well, I'm excited about that one. Last one I have is the alleyways. Where are we at on getting those alleys cleaned up in East Tampa?
So, we did have a discussion on Monday during the land use subcommittee meeting. I was present. There were conversations about the alleyways. And I know that West Tampa has done a lot to do that. East Tampa's somewhat of a different animal, and it's a lot more space to cover. My suggestion to the subcommittee, and they're probably going to bring it back to the CAC at the August meeting, was to start looking at different quadrants, so we can focus on a quadrant. If we look at maybe areas that are higher in traffic or retail, if we're looking at some of those corridors, whether it be the north-south corridors through East Tampa, I'm talking Nebraska 15th, 29th, 34th, or 40th, that may be something we can look at, but looking at a quadrant, and then we can kind of move it from space to space. I know some neighborhoods, some of the residents may not want their alleyways touched, because if you do that, then that opens it up for people to start illegal dumping or hanging out and doing, some other things that may not be conducive to their standard of living. And but then you have some residents that may want to, and I heard Mr. Piles had interaction with him years ago as it relates to wanting to have access to their alleyway so that they can park. So, and it'll have to be done by, I would imagine, a case-by-case basis and getting buy-in from those immediate neighborhoods. But my suggestion would be to focus on specific quadrants along those corridors. And I think, then if those contingent of residents don't support it, then we move on to the next.
After your next meeting and a plan is put in place, bring that back so we know what the plan is. So I can tell some residents have been asking about that, and we can move on, clean up some of those alleys where you need to.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Thank you. As you know, almost every week we have residents from East Tampa coming saying that we're either not spending money or we're not spending it effectively in East Tampa and we're not doing enough. 3 years ago, we, almost as soon as we all started, we had lots of people come here in front of us and say that we needed to do something about Fair Oaks Community Center, and they reported rats in the ceiling, that it was a fire trap, all kinds of things. And then this CRA held a public meeting where more than 100 people attended, and we heard their feedback, and Councilmember Goods and others pushed really hard for a CRA to put money in, and then we pushed for the city to put money in. In the end, the CRA's financial role will be small compared to the city because the city's putting in such a big amount. But my point is that in the articles I read about Penny Saver, I didn't see any mention about the CRA. And it's not so that we can get our names in there and promote ourselves, but if the residents don't see that the CRA contributed to it, if they don't see a sign up that the CRA invests in, if they don't see in the press that the CRA invests in, they're going to keep coming back before us saying, you guys didn't do anything. And so I would ask whatever communication apparatus we have now, that we make sure we communicate. There will be several milestones as this park is developed, and we need to make sure that the residents know that the CRA is involved in a major partner, and I would suggest, as I've said before, that the CRA chair at a minimum be present, not so that she can get publicity, but again, just to be able to tell the public the CRA invested in. If the city partnered with Habitat for Humanity and built a house, Habitat chair and somebody from the city would show up. In this case, if the CRA partners with the city, we need to make sure that the CRA is front and center, so that the public knows that their money is being put to good use. Thank you.
Yes, sir, point taken.
Since we're on the park situation, a lot of people don't know, Mr. Artis Gambrell, he probably was one of the longest African-American employees in the city, almost 50 years. I understand he's a little ill right now. But, you know, Mr. Gambrell ran all of the east side parks, all the way up to Sulphur Springs. He ran the whole east side. And that park that we're talking about today, it was kind of like his home stage, because that was his base for everybody. He's one of the catalysts of Belmont Heights Little League as well, which they just did a good story on Belmont Heights Little League because the World Series is coming up, and Belmont Heights Little League is featured as the premier program back in those days, and it's considered one of still the monumental programs across the country in their pamphlet they're putting out for this year's, I think it's on the 75th or 100th year anniversary, something like that, but I knew it was a big anniversary book for Little League Baseball. With saying that, I'd like you to take back to the administration, recreation. If I need to make a motion later, I will, but maybe that complex being dedicated to Mr. Gambrell in some kind of way. I think he would love that. I like to give people their flowers while they're still here with us. And he was a man that, he ran the whole east side, all of the parks on the east side. So I'd like to see something in his honor at that facility. So if you can just take that back, I think that's more than appropriate for Mr. Gambrell.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Goods and seconded by Councilmember Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, before we jump into item number 4, I just wanted to, reference a comment you just made, Councilman Carlson, regarding the marketing and sharing of information. In my one-on-one with the chairwoman this week, I actually talked a little bit about that and how we need the information share. We've reserved some handles for the CRA, and as you know, we're getting ready to pull together the branding piece of that. But I think that we do need to go forward with the information sharing piece, because there's a lot that we want to push out there, and then we'll back into the brand itself. And so that's something that we'll be doing, and I'll bring an update back to you in August on that. Yes, sir. So item number 4 on the agenda is a report on the East Tampa CRA pre-development program. So this is your update. There is a memo that is accompanying this update. Just for the board, the East Tampa CRA Economic Development Subcommittee actually took the lead on this particular program, and they started to draft out program parameters. And Ms. Hewitt is the chair of that subcommittee. She's sitting in the back. And so she presented that preliminary program in June at the CAC meeting, and the CAC actually voted to have that subcommittee work in collaboration with staff on the program. And so, understanding your desire to have an update today, just know that we are working on that program. We do have a schedule that's enclosed with the memo. We've already had an internal workshop on that July 15th. We now have something we need to send over to Deputy City Attorney Massey. And then we have a workshop on the 26th with that subcommittee to flush out the program and just kind of cross-compare to make sure we get on the same page before we go back to the CAC. Our intent is to present the program at the next CAC meeting, and then from there, if we get any feedback, we're just reserving some time in September to go back to the CAC again if we get tweaks or there's some adjustments we need to make. But ideally, we'll be bringing back a full program that we can implement to you all, to the board in September.
Councilman Goods.
I remember I motioned this a couple times, and I see Ms. Hewitt is still here. What she says is correct, because a lot of times I get folks that call my office, they have a difficult time with zoning, they don't know this, they don't know that. A lot of times I have minority communities because they don't have the dollars to be able to hire these big firms to come in and argue their points, or they don't have the, the draft designs. And so I see the purpose of this could really help our CRA in East Tampa, because a lot of these people, they get discouraged because they don't know to know, or they may not have the funds. So I think with this and what they're talking about can be able to help when you have a party that can be able to help them come in and sit down and go through these steps and be able to help with what is the zoning, what is a land use number. You know, we all had to learn it too. These different codes, so they didn't know it themselves. So, and with construction services and things like that. So I think it's very good. It's going to help out, especially with those corridors right in the middle of 34th Street, what all those businesses are. We can probably eventually do a survey and go and knock on those doors and be able to say, this is what we got. We can help you now. I think that's a great thing. And again, I see Ms. Hewitt. I know Mrs. McCaskill helps her as well. So just thank you for pushing this. I know, like I said before, we always hearing no, 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 but I'm glad that Mr. Elise there, he didn't say no, 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 because he understands it. He understands the concept, and now he's working to push it through. So again, thank you again for your service and what you do.
Councilman Carlson.
Just a quick question. As I understood it from what Ms. Hewitt said earlier, the purpose of this is to help people who have owned a property for a long time, and instead of having to sell it to somebody else, they're able to develop. Is there is there a minimum number of years for ownership? Is there something to prevent somebody from coming and buying the property and taking advantage of this?
So within the program that we're proposing, there is no minimum number of years for ownership, but I think part of the goal is to create a concept of what can be developed on the site. And if that individual that owns a property, if they turn around and say, well, you know what, I don't think I can execute this, and they decide to sell, the goal is to pair them with either people who can write them into a deal so that they don't have to dispose of their property, or to help them understand what value they should be seeking for those properties. But ideally, we would love for to pair people with the right developer so that we don't have a ton of property changing hands. We will propose some limitations on how often someone would be able to come back and take advantage of that program. We don't want people coming in and cycling through project concepts year over year. But ideally, we get a few that either we can help get out of the ground, we can help people build them collectively, or we can pair them with a developer that can then execute on those projects.
I think it would be interesting to hear Ms. Hewitt's committee's feedback on that, but based on what I heard earlier, it seems to me that there should be at least like a 5-year limit or something like that. Just if the idea is to not force people to sell their properties, or to help people that held properties for a long time to take advantage of them. But anyway, I'll leave that up to them. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along the same items that Councilman Carlson's talking about, I agree with that philosophy. You have to have, if there's 10 houses, 100 houses, or 1,000 of them, I think it's going to be the ones that have been there the longest, that need the most help and can never afford it, never will be able to afford it. That ought to be #1 priority in those statistical areas. And then cannot be somebody who has multiple properties, especially if they're rentals. They're making money somewhere along the rental certificate or whatever they got going. And it's got to be somebody, in my opinion, somebody who is a single homeowner first, who has a financial distress problem, like doesn't have the money even to pay the electric bill or the water bill. Those are the ones that have to be taken care of first. Those are the ones that need the most money at the time that they need it. And then from there, you got to work up towards the others. But I think the one that are the most need, that don't have the income at all, period, should be first. They have to have a certain amount of time at the house, and you cannot, in my opinion, you can be a multiple lister for one house, but not for 10 or 15 or 2 houses even. You have to have that spread along this total, and I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what the ideal is, my ideal anyway. That ideal is one house per single family, and it has to be the one that's been there the longest and the most needy first, and then you work down the list to catch them all up if you can. You're not going to get them all, but you're going to get most of them. Thank you very much.
So I thank you for that feedback, Councilman. As a point of clarity, the pre-development program is specifically, it's more targeted towards commercial development and mixed-use development. So we're talking about commercial corridors in East Tampa where potentially we have property owners who have been long-standing residents who have sat on property for several years, or they've inherited property and they're just not sure what to do with it, or they own property along the corridors that needs a significant amount of investment, and they're just not quite sure how to renovate them and reactivate those properties.
And I appreciate that very much, but you also have property owners that have owned it for a long time that have been doing something and just haven't taken care of their building. Am I correct or not?
Absolutely.
Well, those are the ones that gotta be last. That's all.
Understood, sir.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Hewitt, you and I spoke about this, goodness, 2 years ago. And I think this is a win-win for just about everybody, especially if we're going to put these on the economic corridors. You have what may be an elderly person who wants to just live out the rest of their lives. They can't maintain the property. They don't want to maintain the property. They want to live in something comfortable. Why not put a triplex or a quadplex on it so that that person could still live in the community, still live there, being able to have someone else live in that, from the community, live there, but also be able to make walkable to a doctor's office, to a grocery store, or something like that. That's how you build a community. So I think, Ms. Hewitt, thank you. I did listen to you when you were talking to me. This is a perfect idea. Thank you very much.
And I just want to say, I really do love this idea in the terms of helping to develop generational wealth. I think that's very important. I've heard that the community say loud and clear that that's what they're looking for. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this, where this goes. I think it'll be a huge driver for that. And so thank you for all your work on this.
Sure. Well, the next item on the agenda is a report regarding the feasibility of monetary support for Memorial Cemetery.
And I'll go ahead and take that. Hey, real quickly, I think most of you are aware that we have been struggling for some time to address certain title issues with Memorial Cemetery. We think we are close to resolving that so that Memorial Cemetery will either come under ownership of the city or a not-for-profit that's associated with the city. That will open up opportunities for further city and CRA involvement. The CRAs typically do not support operational costs for those type of things. But again, this would be something that would have to go through the process with the CAC and the CRA, looking at budgets and what could be done. But there would be the possibility, once we resolve the title issues, for the CRA to perhaps make contributions toward physical improvements at Memorial Cemetery, such as, I think there's been discussions about putting a fence around it or securing it in better ways, dealing with some issues with some of the monuments that are there that have deteriorated. We could certainly, I think the CRA could help once we get those issues resolved, but that's where we're at on that issue this time. So.
All right.
Yes, Council.
Were you going to do a speak on this, or?
I think they were
That's
deferring to
okay.
me, because it's really
May I?
Yes, Councilman Vieira.
in a legal.
Oh, yeah, and I won't, thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. This is a very important cemetery and memorial for the city of Tampa, very, very historical. I've been out there a few times, more than a few times. I know Councilman Good certainly has. I remember doing a work day with him a couple of years ago out there with some folks. And something that's very, very important, the reason I did this is because we're seeing this go into deterioration in many, many ways. And I don't care who does it. I don't care if it's the CRA, the city, the private sector, whoever. We can't let this cemetery go into deterioration. It's such a pivotal. In 1923, there was a ceremony out there. If y'all have ever seen the Red Cross Memorial that they have out there for fallen African American soldiers in World War I, it was a big ceremony was held out there. A lot of folks out there, including the folks from American Legion, Post 5, Blanche Armwood, Beatty, and many other folks were out there. She, in fact, directed it. The pastor at the time of St. Paul AME was out there. And there's graves out there of African American soldiers who were killed in action during World War I, and just something that we have to make sure to preserve. So, I have no problem. I know that's a transition and all this stuff, and I have no problem making a motion, if I may, that's multi-pronged to have this return. Mr. Massey, what do you think? 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months should be
And then if we
fine.
need more time after that.
We're hopeful to resolve the title issues relatively soon. And just so you all are aware, and you may be aware of this already, the administration through the Parks Department and Code Enforcement have been doing some basic maintenance activities to make sure that the cemetery doesn't further deteriorate and get overgrown. So the city has been doing that.
Absolutely.
We've been in this limbo situation, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I know, and I was speaking to Mr. McCray yesterday about a plan once we resolve the issue of ownership for the monetary amount that will be required to have a proper renovation of it, et cetera, et cetera. I would strongly, strongly support that. I have no problem with that. Obviously, in working with our friends at the CAC, with their guidance, leadership, and input, with having CRA fund that, if it's legally feasible. And I would also like to see, and this is something that's separate from this body, but a historical marker out there done through the Hillsborough County Historical Marker Committee, just to, because the memorial there, it's hard to see when you're walking out there. But that's a totally separate issue. And again, if the city has to assume my position, if the city has to assume ownership of this to make sure that it's preserved, I support that 110%, and I think the vast majority of the people of the city of Tampa would. So my motion, if I may, is to have this returned to us in, let's say the first week in January. Is that one? There you go, January 12th, with, I guess, just an updated report on the feasibility, the status of the ownership issue, and if it's resolved, a monetary plan for CRA to approve and working with the CAC to preserve this important cemetery.
So I have a motion by Councilman Vieira and a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Question?
Oh, sorry. Point of question.
Just for the record, the CAC many years ago bought the fencing that's currently around there now. I think that was a part of a FDOT plan or something's going through there. So just for the record, the CAC has been a vocal part of keeping that cemetery up when it was asked to, so I don't think it'll be a problem this time. But the fencing that's up there now, the metal one, the CAC bought.
Yep.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
And I'm glad that this was brought up. Thank you, Councilmember Vieira. I spend a lot of time in cemeteries. It's just I guess a hobby that I have, and I've been to many all over the place, and I see how well they're preserved. And people ask me, and I have people that have teased me, why do you spend so much time in the graveyard? Because it's not like visiting a museum. It's not like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's so the dead know that they are not forgotten, right? There are so many significant, important people, especially in this community, and if you go through the cemeteries, that have contributed in so many ways. My grandparents are at Myrtle Hill. Other people have, pioneers in Tampa, they're right up the street here at Oaklawn. Other people have Woodlawn. But I think, it's so important, whatever happens with ownership and responsibility for this cemetery, that this cemetery is treated like these others. And so, the people that came before us, our ancestors, the pioneers, the people that helped build this community, are not forgotten and are treated with that dignity and respect even after they have passed. And, Memorial Cemetery is something that I've heard about for a very, very long time, and its lack of upkeep, and I just want to see it garner the same respect that we offer to other cemeteries, private and public, throughout the city of Tampa. So I'm glad this was brought up, and I look forward to January when we get that updated report. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Goods.
You're not weird. I mean, I remember when I was police officer, I would go into the cemetery and I'd park the car, and do reports, and I would look at the names. A lot of famous people. You see different stones that are made, markers. I mean, my father passed away. I used to remember the stone I always wanted to have myself. I died, and we made it kind of from my dad as this marble stone. So it's people, they may be more weird, but it's not. You get to actually see people like Mr. Stone. A lot of people know Stone Funeral Home. Stones were a big family back in those days in Memorial Park. So when you go through those cemeteries, you see a lot of interesting things. So it's not weird.
No, the other day I went to visit my grandparents, and you were there when my grandmother passed away, and that's where my eternal condo is going to be at, because I'll be in the crypt right there. But a friend of mine came with me, and I said, let me just take a walk. and show you some of the names. And he goes, is that so? Is that so? I go, that's the bridge, and that's the building, and that's the street, and that's, you know, so I see how some cemeteries, I know that one's privately owned, how they're maintained, you know, that perpetual care that they talk about, the perpetual care funds, and I want to see this, you know, happen with the cemetery, because Councilman Vera mentioned, you have soldiers that served in World War I, you have pioneers, people that built this city, you know, from way back, you know, from the 1800s, from the early days of Tampa. So anything in support, you know, I would be in support of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, first of all, I agree with my colleagues. We should do whatever we can to protect and support the cemetery. We don't want it to become the next Zion or anything else. We want to make sure that we protect the legacy of the people who are there and their families. The second thing, though, is that, and this is more maybe for City Council another day, we've got to look at what other regulations we might, should, or could put in place. My data is a year or more old when I talked to the city attorney, but as I understood it back then, the state only requires a trust fund that's equal to maybe 1 year of maintenance. And so if it's a private cemetery, I'm not talking about this one in particular, but if it's a private cemetery and whoever owns it is making money over the years and then they sell all the land, if there's no mechanism, revenue mechanism to update it, then at some point it dumps to the city or the county. And it's not really fair to the taxpayers of the city or county to have to pay that in the future. In situations like this, where it's in the past, we need to make sure we do that. But going forward, I think we need to figure out what regulations we need to put safeguards in for the public, because if it's a couple $100,000 a year over years, that's a lot of money. Instead, if there's some regulation that another city uses that would protect taxpayers while the owners of the cemetery are making money, that would be great to look at. Thank you.
May I add one last thing, if
Yes,
I may?
Councilman
And
Vieira.
one thing I also, and I briefly mentioned it, but you know, one of the reasons I think the cemetery in particular, and I agree with all the comments everyone's made, that is so pivotal is that, you know, these were African-American soldiers after World War I who served, some of whom were killed in action. You know, and think about it, this is, you know, World War I was from 1917 to 1918. This is, 40 years after the end of Reconstruction, and here were individuals who were not treated as citizens, who were, to say they were not given respect is one hell of an understatement, and they wore this country's uniform. They went overseas. Many of them were killed in action. Those who did returned expecting an iota of respect and dignity for their service, to be treated as Americans, and that was during the highest rate of lynchings that we would have in the United States, or one of the highest would come after World War I, because soldiers were returning and demanding respect. So, you know, this cemetery is very, very poignant in that regard. It is a cemetery with a lot of veterans, but also with a memorial there that specifically pays tribute to those World War I veterans in Tampa, African Americans who served and gave all in a time when they were not given the proper respect that they should have been. So there's so much there, and that's why I know that we're all very, very passionate for preservation of this cemetery. But thank you very much for your hard work, and we look forward to having this come back in January. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Item number 6 is a recommended appointment of Arnold Chereba to the Ybor CAC as an ex officio representative of Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Miranda and seconded by Councilmember Maniscalco. I believe we need a roll call vote for this.
Goods?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Yes.
And Hurtak?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay.
Item number 7 is the recommended appointment of Rebecca Nagy and George Doherty Pastor IV to the Downtown CAC.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco and seconded by Councilman Citro. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Hurtak?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item number 8 is the recommended appointment of Andrew Kunish to the Central Park CAC.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Hurtak?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
CRA Board, in connection with item number 9, you should have received a memo from me with some slight revisions to the grant application packet to clarify, the two major changes were to clarify that this is primarily for single-family residential structures, which would include duplexes or accessory structures that are legally used for residential purposes. The other clarification is that if it is rental property, as a condition to receiving this emergency roof grant, we are providing for a period of 2 years from completion of the roof, they cannot raise the rent more than 3% over the current, what they're currently charging. And so so there's a restrictive covenant that's included in the packet that would have to be signed as part of the application process if you're a landlord. Those are the two primary changes. So I just wanted to make sure that if you all approve this item, you approve the updated package with the restrictive covenants. Thank you.
Right.
Excellent.
And so as Deputy City Attorney referenced, the East Tampa CRA Emergency Residential Roof Repair Grant Program, if I may have the overhead camera. I'll share the parameters of the program with you. And at its...
Yeah, you gotta turn it upside down.
Oh. I'll get used to it. There we go. So the East Tampa CAC heard this item at its July 12th regular meeting, and they approved it with an 8-to-1 vote. The program is really set up, it's designed to aid those residents in the repair or replacement of their roof. We do have quite a few people that we think that this will improve their quality of life, and so by implementing this program, we'll reduce further damage to the housing unit. The program provides up to $15,000 in grant assistance for that repair and replacement of the roof. And as you see here, there are a list of eligible improvements that we've laid out, from shingles to eaves and fascia, venting, and the gutters as well, if they were already a part of the home, and then some roof trusses. Our goal here is really to address some of the residents who are East Tampa residents who have been on the housing list for a good period of time. And so that's how we came up with the first round of applicants or potential recipients for this program. There were a total of 54 on that list, and we believe 50 of those, or approximately 50 of those, are homeowner occupied. Just looking at the requirements for the program again, it's single-family residences, duplexes, and then also those legal accessory residential structures that would be eligible for repair. Again, the grant would be up to $15,000, and those funds would be paid directly to the vendor. We are able to engage in this program due to the purchasing policy that allows for us to complete these repairs up to this amount. Again, just looking at this, we do have some protections within the program where we want to make sure that the homeowners are still eligible for other housing programs because they are receiving this emergency repair to improve their quality of life. They would still be eligible for the other housing improvements to the interior and exterior of their homes. And then also, again, the landlords must limit those rent increases to 3% renewal with that tenant having the first right within a 24-month period. And really, to answer your earlier question, Councilman Goods, we don't have a ton of restrictions on this. The goal was to make this easily accessible as possible to those residents. The intent after we complete the first round is for us to go out and inventory some additional homes, ideally the blue tarps that we see out on those homes. And staff will pound the pavement a little bit and go take names and make sure that we encourage those people to sign up for our programs. Now, I'll stand for any questions.
Councilman Goods.
Man, somebody's finally listening. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Not being afraid to step out and do what needs to be done. I'm glad you upped it to 15 because most roof repairs right now with the cost of materials have gone up dramatically. Just did a couple of roofs. I mean, the cost is crazy, so I'm glad you made that amount. Glad there's no stringent criteria because once the roof goes, the interior goes with the drywall, the inside wall, it's a mess. So I'm glad it's not gonna hamper a person from being able to get to the next program. And probably when we do the inspection, you probably need to look at that house to make sure that way they're not lost. But now we got this, can I apply for that? And get them on the list, and now we start moving and making the train really move. So I applaud the folks for listening to me. It's been a long time coming. Like I said, the stock is there. We have to rehab what is there to put people in them so they're not homeless. But so again, I thank staff and the CEC for doing this.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Maniscalco.
Thanks
Or
again.
Miranda, pardon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that roofs are expensive. They're usually done by squares. When you measure them, they charge you by the square. What's more expensive is when you go under that fascia and you find the wood is rotted out, because then you're talking about, you don't even know if the 2x or whatever under that is damaged, and there's where the cost of repair comes in. And plywood is very expensive now. That's what you really should put up there when you start doing this type of work if it's needed. And I hope that the owner-occupied ones go first and the tenants go right after that. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
I know the state has been looking at insurance fraud, where they claim that contractors will knock on doors and tell someone that they can get a free roof, and then they'll replace the roof before the insurance company can even inspect it. Do we have some kind of inspection program to make sure that the roofs are in place so that it's not something that someone can get approval from after the fact? We have to look at it first and decide that it needs to be repaired.
We do, Councilman. There are some application, like intake processes that we do have, photos and things like that to ensure that the roof does need to be repaired. Again, the first 50 or so people that are on this list were already on the housing list, and we basically took them out of the queue and expedited, we intend to expedite their repairs as it's listed in the housing queue. So we've done a little bit of legwork already for those, but for those future residences, we certainly will make sure we do that due diligence.
And like my colleagues, I think this is a great idea. You all know I don't like facade grants. I much would prefer funding something like this, or just renovation besides just facade. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Maniscalco, made the motion, and Councilmember Goods seconded. Roll call?
Goods?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Carlson?
Yes.
And Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item number 10 is actually a funding reprogramming for East Tampa CRA to allow for administration of this program. We'll be shifting money from approximately $250,000 from a COVID assistance fund to businesses, and then another $1.5 million from the East Tampa Deteriorated Housing Rebuild Program. Those two line items will see those funds shift into the Emergency Roofing Repair Program, and staff is seeking approval of this reprogramming.
So moved.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Goods, seconded by Councilmember Maniscalco. Roll call vote?
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco? Viera? Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
I see your average is about $14,000 a roof then, for 50, something like that, close to it.
Okay. Item number 11 is a request to reprogram $50,000 from a land assemblage to professional services in support of the Channel District CRA's public improvement for street projects due to the need for tree survey and environmental analysis, and staff is recommending that approval.
So
from the
moved.
board.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Goods, seconded by Councilmember Miranda. Roll call vote?
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item number
Yes, Councilman Carlson.
Just to let you know, since you are looking at some of this for the first time,
Yes.
a discussion we had a year or two ago was that staff previously had put millions of dollars in the interest line item on the budget, and we had asked that they put it into a reserve fund or some other account at the end of the year. If you're moving money from one account to another, please make sure you look at those two accounts, whatever they're called now. But in particular, make sure that there's not a bunch of money accumulating in the interest account that we could use to sweep into something else like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. The motion made by Councilman Maniscalco.
I do
and-
believe that it has
already
already been
made.
done.
Oh,
so-
done.
that we cleaned that out, those accounts up. I believe
Oh.
Ms. Van Loan did that after about a year ago.
Okay, so for this motion, we don't need,
You can make the motion, but I'm just wanting to let you know that I think this has already been done. You're talking about the
Number
program?
12.
Yeah, okay, all right.
go ahead.
Okay. See, item number 12 is actually a corrective reprogramming of funding associated with Channel District roadway improvements. These date back to August of 2021. It was brought to our attention that we needed to correct this before the close of the fiscal year. This is our opportunity to do that. And so this is actually two amounts that are being adjusted here. The first in the amount of $1,348,917. And then the second is a reduction, which would be shifted into another account to make that whole of $226,505. That would be restored to the amount for the Aquarium parking lot project. Just for clarity, these reallocations, they do not increase funding for any projects, and staff is just recommending approval on this.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Miranda and seconded by Councilmember Goods. Roll call?
Viera.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes. Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
And Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Right, and item number 13 is a grant agreement for the repair, renovation, restoration, and rehabilitation of Tampa Union Station. This resolution, actually, I believe it went before you as a council, and so now it's back before you as a CRA board.
So move.
I think,
No, before we vote on, I just want to thank Councilman Carlson for always being a champion and always bringing up Tampa Union Station. I was there recently, I walked over, beautiful building that deserves a preservation, and I'm glad we're moving forward with this. So.
okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Carlson, seconded by Councilmember Miranda. All in favor, or I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Viera.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
And Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, one point of question. For item number 5, Councilman Vieira made a motion. Did we vote on that? That's, yeah, Councilman Citro brought that to my attention, and I want to double check, so thank you. Okay, just,
I thought we skipped.
yeah, and we voted. Okay, excellent. Well, just wanted to double check.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Any business? Councilmember Carlson. Oh, so, I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Councilman.
Madam Chair. I just want to know if we've done it before, that's fine, but if we haven't, we have to know how many lots are buildable in the city of Tampa within the CRA district, so we can use some of the money for the CRA to start building affordable housing. And instead of and I've always supported facade grants to a point, but sometimes there are emergencies that come up that are needed to look at sooner than what we've been doing in the past. There's nothing wrong with what we've done. We've improved the area from decaying further, but now it's time to say that, let's put the nail in the hammer to work. And I'd like to know how much land we have assembled, any buildable lots or any land that's assembled, so we can build affordable housing with CRA money.
Yeah,
Yes,
is that a
motion,
motion? Okay. I'm sorry.
You go ahead and
Councilman
take the vote, but I just wanted to let you all know that under state law, we are now supposed to be coming up with an overall inventory of all city-owned property, not only within the CRA, but citywide, and then bring that before you all and make a recommendation what can be used for affordable housing.
I didn't know
And
that,
and that process is being done at this point in time by our real estate division, and so that should be coming forward soon.
Soon is what date? About? So I
They're
can make the
supposed to,
motion.
the real estate division director or a manager is on vacation, but I believe it's going to be coming to you maybe in August, as soon as next month. But
Well, August will be fine then.
Yeah, I was just about to add that we are, that's something that's in the works while she is on vacation, and I do think that we should have that concluded.
I've been reading minds, I just didn't know he was on vacation.
That's right.
So we still want the
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, and I believe Councilman Carlson seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, Councilman
I, the last motion, I was just going to add, and I got my answer, if we were going to separate the properties within the city, but those that were in the CRAs, and I got my answer. Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Oh, so we'll start. Councilman Carlson, Councilman Vieira.
I do a small one, if I may. I want staff to come back in the CRA meeting in November on the feasibility of providing legally authorized, I don't want to use the word assistance, but CRA funding to the extent that it can to meet with individuals, and I can connect them with the Martí Maceo Social Club in Ybor City, which continues to have financial problems, and to the extent that the CRA can assist them with issues like facade, whatever you want to call it, I would make a motion for feasibility of that. Let's try in November, if you guys need more time, please, that's fine.
So I have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in, November 10th, on November 10th works. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Anything else? No, ma'am. Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
No, nothing. I'm glad to hear Martí Maceo brought up. I used to go there with my grandmother often, and I know a lot of people have passed away, but it's even up to us as council members to visit and go. It's so significant to the history of Ybor. We know Jose Martí. We don't often talk about General Maceo, who had family members recently here. I'm sure she was known as Remember Maceo, and she passed away recently, but there are family members still around, and we have to keep that legacy going. That club has been there with the Afro-Cuban population for over a century, and again, we have to keep this history alive. So, very good, sir. That's it.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to wish a happy birthday to one of our city council family, our city hall family, Officer Richie Mercado. Happy birthday to you, brother.
Second.
That's it.
Okay. Councilman Goods.
Nothing today, but I just want to say the work that the CRA managers are doing right now, it's a different vibe going on right now. It's pushing things through, getting them done. So we really appreciate the work. I know the citizens appreciate the work that you guys are doing now. Not saying we ain't doing, but now it's just like a different vibe to really try to get things, not saying what we can do, but what we can do, and finding a way to get it done. And again, with the new leadership of Mr. Drago and Ms. Travis, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, anything from Councilman Miranda? Okay.
And may I just really quick, it's
okay.
not a motion, we often note people who pass on, but Judge Robert Foster of the 13th Judicial Circuit, he was for almost 20 years, he was a trial court judge there. He was just a great guy, and he passed on a few days ago. I'd known him as an attorney, being in his courtroom for a number of years, but I got to be friends with him over the last few years because of my wife. And he was just a good guy. I like him a lot, and we all mourn him. He was just such a fun-loving guy, and he actually moved into Hunter's Green in the last year and started making a lot of trouble there. I mean that lovingly, and just such a good guy. So just God bless him, God rest his soul, and to his family, and all who loved him, just our sincere condolences. He was a good man. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
On the same avenue there, the passing away of David Tippin, who the water plant is named after David Tippin water plant. He led the city for many, many years as the director of water and did an outstanding job setting the future pavement of the road to follow to have the citizens have the best water quality at the best price possible. And he was a giant, not only in size, but in the way he approached things and the well-mannered demeanor that he used. He seemed like never to get agitated. Even when I looked at him, he just looked at me and kept on walking, and he told me more by not saying anything than saying you were wrong. But he was a great guy to be around, and taught a lot about water, and he was his attaché later on became the head of the water department, which was Brad Baird.
Okay, Councilman Citro.
Madam Chair, I apologize, but Monday was the birthday of a giant in the city of Tampa.
and that is the Honorable E.J. Salcinas. E.J., happy birthday.
Okay. So we have a motion to, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I have a motion but no second.
Second.
Anybody? Okay. So I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco to receive and file. I have a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, CRA meeting is adjourned.
Live on meeting.